I'd like to call our meeting to order. We're waiting for enough for our quorum, and it's now arrived, so we're good. Minutes of our last meeting were provided, and they are in our package somewhere. Actually, it was the one of the 14th, the special minutes. The other ones, I don't see either. Were they, did we have those?
No, I don't. I think she might have put them on, said provided for the 14th.
Yeah.
But that doesn't look like the 14th, does it?
Okay,
Oh,
the
yeah, it is.
special meeting is the
Right.
14th.
So the reason that we don't have minutes is because we haven't been able to get in touch with the person that was recording the minutes.
Okay.
You said the plan was to watch the video and transcribe.
Right, so Pam didn't get to that, but I think that we're gonna have to do that between now and the next meeting. We'll have to have somebody look at the tape and describe, you know, and then Gail is taking all the motions and all the votes so that we'll capture that,
Okay,
okay?
all right.
So we're not gonna do that.
So we will do the minutes of the 14th, correct?
Yes.
So we have those. We just don't have the minutes of the following one.
We don't have the regular school committee.
Excuse me, no, we don't.
We have just the
This was
special.
a special one that we had. Does anyone see anything that needs to be corrected on this?
They're kind of hard to understand.
Yeah, they are.
There's a lot of spelling things. and
Just
stuff.
like, what?
Yeah.
Just, there's an underlined, I think, of a typo, where it says, under number 2, County Technical School, what was out school, was it supposed to be our school?
There's a lot of type, there's a lot of,
We don't need two tech schools. Yeah, it was our school. What was our school to,
Due to pursue.
going to do to pursue? Or,
What was our school? To pursue.
exactly. This
Yeah.
was the first grant.
and then the other,
Does our school want to pursue the application for the grant? Does that sound better?
which grant?
The first grant, the one with tech school and Montague, yeah. Tech school, and it says tech school twice, but maybe we need to put Gil Montague.
Did we talk about
Yes.
Bill Montague?
Where does
Yeah.
it say
Okay.
tech school twice?
Yeah,
It's still Montague Turns Falls Technical, or doesn't
Yeah.
Turns Falls need to be in there? It is still
no,
Montague.
just Gil Montague.
Okay.
Does our school want to pursue to apply for such grant or whatever language? Does that
Is it-
sound like?
That's when we were discussing joining Gil Montague and Tech, right?
Exactly, correct. Martha, considering how many, I don't,
There was how many grants? Stop talking.
discussion in regard to financial legal obligations, study financial analysis for 10 years.
Those are the two questions I have.
Right.
Two
Okay,
questions.
all right, Deb asked. David made a motion for the committee to join Gil Montague application. Gil Montague / Franklin County Tech, is that okay, David?
Uh-huh.
And then just spell one.
Exactly, misspelling of Montague.
Sharon seconded discussion, all in favor, yes.
There, it's Montage.
Yeah.
You would-
And then I believe Mike should be Bill, moved, motion.
Bill?
Bill Wallstrom.
Bill Walsh.
He moved the motion?
And what happened before he
Sure.
withdrew? Didn't we have a whole discussion?
Yeah.
What did he move a motion on? What was the motion?
He was moving, how was he moving a motion on? 'Cause David
Didn't he
was
wanna move
arguing
the
about it. It was something, he wanted to move a motion to decide.
No, that's already passed.
Wasn't it
Need
to
a
stop the
motion.
conversation?
Yeah, it was,
The
Oh,
what?
yeah, yeah. It
What
was,
was
it
it
was,
about?
it was the finer point that if you call the question,
Oh.
you've just
Yeah.
introduced a subsidiary motion that has
Yeah,
to be
right.
dealt with, and then you
I
go on.
think so.
That's the,
Okay. So he withdrew it to take that technicality off the table.
So what,
Ruth presented another grant for all towns to apply for Northfield, Bernardston-Northfield best practice.
so is that the name of the grant, best
Was
practice?
it best practice grant?
No, it was a efficiency and regionalization grant.
Right.
Okay, so what's the best practice?
That, it's all coming under the umbrella of the Community Compact Best Practices Grant.
Okay,
We don't really understand how and why, but they're related somehow.
To confuse you.
Yeah, yeah. You get points for your grant
Oh,
if you
that's
already
right.
have best practice grant.
yeah. Okay, Sharon made a motion to accept, David seconded, all in favor, yes. Does that sound all right?
I mean, maybe we should say that we reviewed the draft of the grant.
Yes.
We should probably say that.
But that wasn't, which, the first grant?
No,
Yeah.
Ruth's
And a
grant.
second,
We didn't do
Right.
that at that meeting.
We did.
yeah.
Right.
We did. We reviewed a one-page draft of the grant.
Right.
Okay, one page.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the.
It wasn't a
handwritten.
final draft.
The handwritten.
And we reviewed Mike's grant. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So
Want to
you're
read?
gonna add
I
that
wouldn't,
in.
I wouldn't accept them, just do a
Take another
redo
shot
and,
at it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if somebody has some notes,
Shall
I'll
we
take
read
it.
through this and just see if it sounds all right, way I've written it? On number 2, Franklin County Tech and Gil Montague. Does our school want to pursue the application for such a grant? Does that sound
Well,
right?
we were being asked to join, right? So they wrote the application and they
that's
asked us to
right.
join.
Yep.
So we really
To
need to do
join.
the application.
Yep. Okay.
And, excuse me, Pat, I think Monday night at the Franklin County Technical School, weren't you and Pat, you and Peggy, at the meeting at Tech School?
We
I believe
were.
that's what it it reflects that Monday night you were at
It
the
was
Tech
Monday,
School.
Monday during the day, so just Monday.
That's what-
And we met at
I
the tech
wasn't
school
there
with
on
Gil
Monday,
Montague.
so I know that's not right.
No, it was Tuesday. It was Tuesday. Because Peggy has more fun things to do on Mondays. All right, Pat and Peggy went through the process on Tuesday at Franklin County Tech School with Gil Montague.
Was Gil Montague at that
They
meeting?
were.
Yeah, what was that meeting all about? Were they
Just
reviewing
this-
their grant?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Is that right, Peg?
Peggy, on Tuesday, that meeting you went to, they were reviewing the grant they were putting out?
Well, they had already agreed, those two
Yeah.
districts.
Tech and Gilmont.
Right.
When they thought there was a possibility that we, Pioneer, might be interested in somehow yet to be determined
Yeah.
way of working together, whether it's just administration or
Right.
further.
Whatever.
They invited us to,
Right.
you know, because it was a hurry up and get it done by the
Right.
16th
Right.
of November.
Leave us much time.
But maybe instead of saying on Monday night, we should say what the date was, because when we look back
Yeah.
at that,
Yeah,
Exactly.
on Tuesday, November.
Was it the same day as our meeting?
Well, so it was November 14th.
it was November 14th,
It was
yeah.
right before
Yeah.
our meeting.
Because they,
No, it wasn't. Was it?
Yeah, you went that day.
No, we didn't go that day. I've got it written down at home. I thought it was a week before. I don't
May-
remember. I think it was a week before, Peggy.
It might have been. I mean, I remember writing this up.
Oh,
For,
we'll check it out and we'll make sure, that I have it
as
written
part of
down.
our minutes for, that's what we met, that we met, the search committee met the same day.
Exactly.
And we
think it was-
discussed it, and I wrote it all up,
Yeah.
what happened in the
Exactly.
minutes of
Right,
that
yeah.
meeting.
I think it was the week before that we met.
You're right.
Why don't we
Martha,
say Peggy and Pat previously met with
that's probably a good
Franklin
idea.
County Tech and Gilmonte?
Yeah. It doesn't make any difference where we met, as long as we met with them.
It'd be November 7th.
Martha was wondering how many grants.
I don't know. I think
I don't
she'd have
know.
to chime in on that. I
Yeah.
can't figure out anything about that.
Okay, just Deb asked about the discussion between the financial obligation and we need to study the financial analysis for 10 years. Thank you, Deb, we got that one straight.
Going out 10 years.
Right. David, that motion was okay from you with the addition of Franklin County Tech added in. Skipping after, says Sharon, on to where we crossed out Mike and put Bill, move the motion to stop discussion. Sharon seconded, and Bill withdrew his motion. Ruth presented another grant that all towns apply.
Ruth presented another regional grant for our district, maybe.
Should it say, David made a motion that the committee join with Gilmonte and Franklin County Tech
In their
for
application.
what is the grant? It's the regionalization,
Efficiency and
Study.
Efficiency and
Efficiency and
regionalization.
regionalization.
that should be in
Yeah.
the minutes.
Yes, it should.
For a,
And was it Gil Montague with TAP that was making,
Yeah.
yeah,
applying for the grant?
Yeah.
Or was
Yes.
it just Gil Montague?
both.
Bill Montague and Pat.
And how
And they wanted you to,
Excuse me?
much? 400?
They were hoping up to 200,000, not 200,000, but up to that amount. Okay. Sharon made a motion to accept, David seconded, all in favor, yes. Okay, let's have them maybe typed up and
Have
figured
Pam
out.
redo
and
it, yeah.
Pam can redo, and that's sort of kind of how we want them to be. Accounts payable were provided, as was the expenditure report. And last month, you had a new way of doing that. Do you have that?
it's.
Do
it
another
should
one
be-
for us?
It's right here.
Okay. Do you want to run it through us one more time, just because I think
Try to
it's
make it a little easier.
What are we
Yeah.
on right now?
It's a one pager.
white,
White or blue?
white.
And I think we got the headings and stuff, Susan, Sue, that you wanted. If not, let me know.
Yeah, that looked a lot better to me.
She lined it up. You have it?
I don't see it yet, but.
One sheet. It's not blue.
Is it white or is it blue?
It's
No.
blue.
Some are blue.
Oh, yours are on blue?
Okay.
All right, that's why I can't
Okay.
find it on the white. Okay. All right.
Okay, so description, the general ledger budget, that's what you voted. The range to date is what, from 11/23 to 17 to 12/15, so that's the amount of money that was spent in that range.
Okay.
The next one is year to date, and again, it gives you 7/1 to 12/15. And the dollar amounts that has been spent, gives you the balance, and then you have the line that is encumbered out of all of those. Both payables and salaries, and then the budget balance at the end. And it's those broader categories, not the individual lines. Is this a little clearer?
Yes.
Ruth, can you just talk about the relationship between the number that we sign off on in the warrant and the reporting that we get?
Okay, so let me, this one here?
So this warrant, we sign off on $312,000 in this warrant.
338, 62.
So what's the relationship?
Between these two?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was my question too, because we have, usually we spend about $260,000 a month.
Yeah.
And then when I see it as $312,338, I go, whoa. What did we
Right,
miss?
so the range to date for this was 11/23 to 12/15, and it's 636,000. But I don't know if the salaries are in here as well, or if this is just the accounts payable from Brenda, which it looks like.
No, the blue one has the salaries on it.
So the white one has $312,338.
Which one did you talk?
This white, well, you don't have white, you have color, sorry, I don't know.
Look, no,
Okay, so what is that? I don't see that piece.
yeah, I don't,
Right here? Oh, no.
We
where's-
got sent this in email, but I don't see
Right.
it in front of me.
Right.
The 312,000,
Right.
it's right here.
Yeah, I know, but we didn't get it.
Right, we don't have it.
We
in our
don't have
packet.
that
We
one.
got it
This is the
online.
warrant.
Oh, you got it online.
Right.
oh, I know.
And did you get it today?
We did not get it in the packet.
No, we got it.
Thursday or Friday.
Thursday or Friday of last week?
Yeah, before Pam went on vacation.
So the discrepancy could be because Brenda is still running checks and getting the warrant ready for the accounts payable all this week up until today or yesterday. So that might be the discrepancy in this month. I'm not positive about that with Pam gone.
That's $300,000.
Yeah, well, it's $52,000 over what we normally would spend. That's what we were, $260,000 a month, I think was a figure you gave us, that's about what we spend a month.
Well, it
So-
really varies depending
Sure,
on
it
payables.
fluctuates a bit. yeah,
Right.
But not $52,000 worth.
So in this
So let's
month,
start with
which is
Pam.
almost a month, is 636,000.
So what would be good was if we could see on here
Exactly.
range to dates, you know, if they could match and we could
Time them at
track.
this, create the
Yeah.
reports at the
Yeah,
same
yeah, so
time.
that we can follow it as a evolving document.
But, you know, what the problem is these general things are not the same as these.
No, it wasn't tied together. This was an effort from the auditor, so you
Right.
wanted to
Right,
only
get
look
an
at so
overview of
many
the budget. Okay.
Right.
lines.
Okay, so maybe that's just not even a reasonable request.
I'm not sure that.
Well, I don't know.
So
Um,
does this number match the
Tries to, no.
expenditure report that's here? Does it have the same? No, this is to 12/12.
It's 12/15.
Well, that's pretty close.
Should be pretty close, yeah. You're looking, I'll let you look.
636,000. I don't know.
You just have too many pieces of paper.
I think if it's 3, 4, 5, not quite 600. I think if you add these two together, it's going to, because this
Look at that.
expenditure report is 250. Enter report. Expenditure is 47,000. This is 257,986,000.
Yeah, I just don't know how to match up the numbers.
I know.
And I'm not sure they'll match up specifically to this.
Right, I should be able to match whatever I sign off on to the
Right.
report and then get it on the expenditures. That's what I can't do.
Right. General fund,
you know, budgeted.
school lunch, oh, well, school lunch is on there, and school lunch is not in the general fund. So this one will never match these.
And then the other thing.
That will never match these, because school lunch isn't there, student activities account's not there.
But it should have.
School choice isn't there. These are all numbers that, gate receipts, these are all numbers that are not in the general fund. So these here that you have are general fund. And this one here is about all these other funds, the grants and all of that. And that's never going to match, because with the general fund over here, and you have all your other
Here it is again.
monies.
Okay, I'll go back and see Brenda,
If they
because when
be
Brenda and I
reimbursing
met,
him
what
for
I loved about
items
it
that he
was
had to
that
buy.
thing on top matched the report that it was
This
in.
did?
Yeah, and I could see where every expenditure came
Right.
out.
And this is typically just the general fund.
Okay. I'll go back.
Okay, does that make sense though now? It makes sense that why it's not lining up.
I have a question.
Yeah.
On the account purchase order pay history,
What page?
looking, hold on a minute. It was page 3 at the top.
Can I see the green one? Yeah.
It says expense athletic user fees, and it was roughly $2,500 for Mayberry Shoe Company. Page 3, right at the top.
So it would have to be an expense for athletics? Brent,
The new soccer uniforms.
The title of the company.
It's a shoe company?
Well, it
Misleading.
used to be Kangaroo Crossing, and now it's Mayberry Shoes.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
So believe me, they don't pay for the shoes.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
They're-
that's why
Way more expensive than the uniform.
well, at least it's not ice hockey.
True enough. True enough.
I wanted an explanation.
No, that's fine. No, it's fine.
Yeah.
Good questions. Any other questions on expenditure reports?
I have a couple. On page 2,
The green one?
yeah.
All right.
I just need to see the green one.
Yeah.
Don't give me-
Too, so.
I know, it's really hard
What is
to
it?
follow this. No, maybe it's not the green one.
So it was,
It has to be the green one, 'cause this is the one I looked at.
that was the one I gave you guys for something else.
There was a, can you tell me what PR posting means when I see it on the form?
Where
There was
is
a
it?
posting, it said PR posting, $65,000 under teacher's salary.
Under teacher salary.
Where are you?
I don't know what page 2 I was looking at. They're all.
Page 3, there's a couple of them.
Page 3?
There's a lot of pages.
There's a lot of page 3s and 2s,
Find the
so.
65.
Well, depends which school.
Find the 65.
So what I think this was that you saw is that when teachers get stipends for doing certain work, they get paid not all at once, they get paid in increments. So that has to be the stipend work for the fall that transpired. And
All
Except one of them, it says PR posting and it's under expense after school tuition.
after,
What page is that, Jane?
Page 3.
All right, let's all take this green packet, okay, and put numbers on it, 1, 2, 3 sequentially.
Yes.
And then when we're on a page,
Thank you.
refer to it accurately, all right?
Oh, I see. All right.
Yeah.
So 1, 2, 3, and then,
1, 2,
Another three.
3.
Okay.
wait a minute, wait.
I'll let you
is
know.
the one, the first one,
Yeah.
5.
What's wrong with the numbers on the page?
they repeat because they're different lots.
Probably the best idea.
That would be helpful if this was done before we get them.
Just before it's in the copy. 22.
Maybe we can ask.
They have that system and we have to respect this.
Well, yeah, it's just if we're all gonna refer to the document.
That's
once
right.
we get it, if
We
it's
need to
before
know.
it's copied, if it's the hand number, it'd be great. It'd just be a little more efficient.
Probably printed. It's probably printed rather than.
It is, right, it's just not consecutive.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, now which one
All
did you
right.
want?
Hold on a minute.
1 through 23.
Good.
Okay, I found it. I don't print it out at home because I know I'm gonna get it here and I don't wanna waste that many more trips.
That's the way I am
Right, so
too.
I'm on page 14,
Now let's see if we
which is a
actually
different,
did it.
and it's actually a page 1, but, right in the middle it says teacher salaries,
Yeah,
12-1, PR posting,
Teacher
64,
salary.
49979 expenditure.
right, okay. So,
So what does, we see PR posting throughout the document in various places, what does that heading mean?
I'm not sure, but I do know that this would be the play. So I don't know, because of the person that's on this line here that you're looking at, that's the person that runs the play, and I'm assuming that all that money came out for the costumes. There was a substantial amount of costume costs, and there's a salary line in there as well. And I'm thinking this came out of one of the revolving accounts.
Okay, so we really don't know what this is. I see the thing for the person, I just don't know what the 65 grand is all about. Can you get back to us on that?
Yeah,
If
it's
we
just-
had a chart of accounts, we could answer that question.
But it also looks like, it says
Have we had
expenditures
questions?
Well, you have one
65, but
in
under
front of you
that is
tonight.
under
Huh?
No, a chart of
a
accounts
totally
would
different
translate
number.
the numbers to, we'd look at that number and we'd know it's a revolving.
Oh, all right, I get it. So
Okay, will
if
you just
have
get
the
back to
whole-
us
Yeah.
on it, Ruth?
Huh?
Will you just get back to us
On
on
what
what
PR
that PR posting is all
posting
about and
is?
what that 65,000 is?
It comes under teacher salary.
65,000?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the figure
On
here.
page 14.
Yeah,
PR.
499. What's this account code? 1,022, yeah, that's 50, that's coming right out of the high school.
Payroll.
Payroll
Right.
posting.
PR payroll, yeah.
From that.
From 5, which was from Pioneer. Because if you look at the account, I can give you a list of them. But it says the first 5, that means it's a general fund, and then the 2,300, I don't have that on the top of my head, but that's the next, so it's got to be teaching, and then the last code 5 is for Pioneer. But I can give you a list of those with what each category means.
Yeah, so then if I had a
Tells you
question,
right
I
there,
could
it's
look it up.
teacher salary.
That,
I know it
This
says
here
teacher
has to-
salaries, but it doesn't, but with the 5, you'd have to know it was teachers.
but this line following right across is a 64, so that PR posting has to have something to do with that. See?
The budget's that, the budget amount,
Yeah,
And that's how much-
but this is all the way across.
right, so I'm sure that's the
That has to be,
salaries.
yeah, it has to be
The
the
teacher
salary. line
salaries,
item.
the
Yeah.
salaries,
Yep, has to be.
budgeted amount.
But PR,
Probably the
Pioneer
system.
Regional,
Payroll.
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 yep.
Okay, just on the same page down the bottom, under STE supplies.
STEM
That's what I
supplies.
thought it might be. What does it mean when there's a number that has brackets? or-
It's negative,
That's what I
more than the
thought.
whole
So-
955,000.
$955.
Yeah.
Sorry, not thousand. We're not that far
That's a
underwater.
We'd all be fired if that were the case.
I think
Right.
Bob just had a heart attack back
So
there.
budgeted 12,009 and, in the whole 955.
Correct.
And I'm not having a problem with that. There's a lot of these that have been way underspent, but I just am trying to understand the way things are
That's not a
reported.
balance, that's a journal entry, saying that it shouldn't have been taken out of that
She-
line. It
she,
says journal entry
Yeah,
requested
that's
by
not-
J. Bacon and approved by R. Miller. So, it was 955, something that was bought, that was posted here, and
And
they
it
said,
was-
whoops,
she
doesn't
wanted it
belong
posted
there, it should
somewhere
come out
else.
over there.
And she did want to post it somewhere else, but it was still in the negative. And maybe when she made
Well,
the adjustment, it
that's not a
won't be.
balance, that's an expenditure. It's a negative, I
Saying it
mean,
was
negative
taken out, this is
expenditure,
showing
yeah.
it being moved.
this will actually up the balance because
Yeah.
we're reversing the
Yeah.
previous
Exactly.
entry.
So we have almost $1,000 more in there than we. than
Right.
is-
Because I was gonna say, there's no
Wow.
expenditure
Right.
There's just the budgeted amount
That's
and then a
unusual.
negative amount.
Right.
Yeah,
So it just stuck out, because I was like, what is that? All right.
once you know what it's all about, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, and then I had a question just about some of the rental and lease equipment.
On page,
Basically, I'll try to
Page
find it,
15.
but that what was budgeted was not what the PO was cut for. Do we just
You don't know? Where are you?
anticipate a rental and then
It depends. If it
sometimes
was
it's
the-
not what we anticipated?
I think most of the lease are the copy machines.
Mm-hmm.
And what might have happened is we went over the limit
Mm-hmm.
of usage, because we ended up with 5-year contracts. I really had wanted to have 3,
Mm-hmm.
but we're in a 5-year, so then you end up in all these extra charges. And the other thing it could be is maintenance, because now some of the machines have started to break down. I don't think, Gail, is there any other equipment that we're leasing, or is it just the copy machine? Nothing in maintenance? Just the copiers?
So we don't have a report or anything from Karen that would tell us that?
Would tell us what?
What machines are up for
Leased.
renewal, for lease?
Well, they're
or-
really not up for renewal,
We did
it's a
see one
5-year.
in the past, though.
I didn't.
We did see information last year, we ought to be able to dredge that up.
Yeah.
She's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's still there. I'm thinking about trying to do something with those leases.
any more questions,
I
Sue?
don't want to keep a file.
The only thing I know is you can't get it out of one lease because you go into another one and you buy it out. You go from lease,
Gail, I just,
you have to ride it out.
You
I'm
think
kind of
you can do
bothered by
3?
the continuing zero amount in the budgeted for cafeteria. Can you update us on what's happening on, last time I asked about it, you said there was a problem with the software or?
reports that you have now are here,
Okay.
September and October.
So in here, it still shows budgeted zero.
Because you don't have
It's a different-
cafeteria in the budget.
It's a
Okay.
different fund.
So how, can you just, how do I make sense of the money coming out of here with the zero balance and only money coming out, right?
You have 0 budgeted, but then money coming out.
So the food service is not in the general budget.
The,
And so as far as the revenue side, there was a significant issues with trying to get the 4 terminals.
Yep.
They tried to do it,
Yep.
and they put it together. So for that beginning, hey Gail, was she finishing putting in those, is she able to put in all that revenue now? Or do we wait, are we waiting for Pam and she was waiting for the,
No, as of this week, everything is up to date.
as of this week? So it probably wouldn't be but it's not gonna be reflected in the general.
So is there any meaning in looking at this report and comparing it to the outlay of expenses in this report? Like, there should be we have a problem with our school lunch situation, right? There should be some way to have a running record of our income versus what we're spending.
So we just had Tracy come in, not Stacy come in, and she balanced all of the accounts. She also went in and she balanced the food service account, so that now, whereas in the past that wasn't accurate, it is now accurate. And so Pam was able to reconcile the food lunch program to the dollar amount, which she hadn't been able to do for months. So I don't know where, when this report, but Pam did that before she left, so
October, yeah.
she got those all up to speed.
So we have October, September, and August, right?
Yep.
And So at some point, we should be able to monitor the relationship between what we're spending and what we're bringing in some kind of a report.
So the report, that report is a report that Pam does every month. And she takes out for all the different towns. She looks at the food service. She's the one that tracks in all the
I know
numbers.
she's keeping track of the income.
It's in there. The revenue's in there.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Oh,
But this is the expenses related to our cafeteria. And there's no report that looks at them side by side, is what I'm saying. Is that true?
I don't, can I see the food lunch for a second? I don't
Page are you
believe.
on?
I'm just looking at
So
page
it
12.
says total revenue.
Budgeted 0, PO and expenditures. So it
Because it's
shows
not,
what we're
it's
spending.
not going
looking
through
at?
that report. It's not going through the general fund. So if you look at,
Exactly, but I want to be able to compare the money we're bringing in on a regular
here.
basis to what we're spending.
It's
but
on there.
it's here, revenue and
So are
expenses.
you saying that these numbers go into this report?
Let me see the number. We're at food cap, start, yes, it's
Here we
got
are.
to go into the report, but it's not the only thing. These are the monies that were spent
Right,
in,
so I'm just saying, given that we've had such a problem with this, I would like it to be transparent. I would like to be able to see what we've spent that month and what we've brought in and where we are.
so this report is meant to do that? And so you're saying that this report isn't enough for you, or it's not aligned with,
Well, yeah, I don't,
You want to
be able-
verify the numbers.
Yeah,
yeah,
she
I
wants
want to be able to see
yeah.
it. We're in a big hole and it's a problem, and I want to be able to see it,
so with,
not just a summary.
all right, so I'll figure out how, Pam we can get it done. This is what they've been doing for
Yeah.
years, so
I
I
mean-
think that's
Yeah.
why they,
Well, which might be what got us into a problem, right?
no, I think, that
Well, I
didn't
know
get it.
there were other reasons, but you can't see things evolving over time if you can't look at the expenses and look at the income and see things happening in real time.
I
Gail,
see what
did
you're
you
saying, but
Okay,
what
so I want to be
will,
able to see it.
Yeah, yeah, but Gail had something she wanted to say first, so.
These reports go to the school committee and have for years, every month, with the exception of this year, because we had major glitches. Now they are here for August, September, and October. These are the report, a lot of these numbers come from the state portal too.
What does that mean?
Well, for example, in September, you don't see a reimbursement from the state because they haven't reimbursed us. I keep getting emails stating that they have not sent out the money for September yet. They sent it for October, so I don't know why they haven't sent it for September. I asked the reviewer when she was here last week, but she said that she doesn't do the finances. So when the finance reviewer comes in the first week of January,
I'll ask her what's going on with September.
I know what you're saying, but I don't,
They used to.
Yeah.
I have to think about how we can do that. Because that's a lot of work and paperwork and slips and it's all, I don't know.
Okay. I mean, I imagine that these numbers are part of this report, right?
Say it again, please.
I imagine the expenses that are documented in this accounts purchase report are somewhere embedded into this summary of the cafeteria situation.
Well, you'd have to run the date range to match the
Right.
month.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you're never gonna tie the two
I don't
together.
know the answer to
Okay.
that, for sure.
Okay. But you understand my
Well-
concern? I just feel very responsible at this point, and I feel like I can't monitor what's happening on a monthly basis.
And all I know is that this is what
I know that's what's been
calculations that
done.
we've done that coordinate with the state, because they have to be submitted to the state every month as well.
Okay.
David?
And this,
I agree with Sue that it would be helpful to have books for this specific activity. And the data all exists.
Right.
And the two ways to go at it would be to go mine it from the larger general ledger. Except from where we sit, all we can really tell is the difference between a wage expense and a non-wage expense.
Yeah.
And to learn anything, we need more detail. I just passed Ruth a note asking, do we have a bookkeeping class? And the answer is no longer. We need to think about cost benefit, because it's going to be an added expense to
Right.
keep a set of books for this. But there's a lot to be learned having some. And then the other way would be to get the original source documentation and do the department's books and then periodically tie them to the school's books, which would be a more acceptable check and balance way to do this. But what's annual revenue on the lunch program?
Annual? I don't know.
You have that, Cal?
I don't know. Gail might know.
I'm just,
Because it's,
I don't have.
100,000 or 5 million?
Yeah, ballpark.
What was the question?
Ballpark figure?
Quarter million?
yeah, it's quite, I mean, it's up there.
A million?
But it's hard
So,
to tell.
just in general, you can say there's going to be a cost associated with having a bookkeeper keep books on this. And we need to decide, is it worth it to us?
Right.
But I think it needs to be looked at.
I mean, I'm thinking there's wages, there's expenses, and there's people paying for lunch.
But, and there's more to it too, though. There's all the, that you get food, commodities and at certain times, and you can, go get breaks on things, and it's just, and so much goes into the terminal, which is not tied to our other software. I mean, it's kind of tricky. But if it all goes to the software in the cafe terminal, or do we have the ability to put all the, not just the revenues, but all the expenditures in that cafe terminal too, which I don't believe we do right now. So that if we could use that one source, then it would be easy to do what you're asking us to do. If not, we'd have to draw that out, because there's it's not directly linked to the software that we have for the rest of the,
So Pam compiles this?
all the time. She has records of all of it, and she's been
So
doing
she
it.
must have the documentation to back this up.
She does, and it's all handwritten. It's
Oh.
it's very archaic.
Don't use that.
You can probably answer the question, and then Sharon has a question.
The revenue for last year, thanks to Jane who pulled up my report that I wrote for you, was $363,095. And there are so many pieces, and I can't even begin to explain all the pieces that go into the lunch program, and that's, this binder right here
I see that doozy.
is
That was the audit.
some of the evidence, the paperwork that was required, and the documentation, and the data, and the finances that were required when she came to visit last week. This does not include what I had to submit through the portal 2 weeks before that. So there are lots of pieces, and there are lots of people in this district that do those pieces. It's not just one person. A lot of the information comes from the state and the federal government. They reimburse us. We tell them how many lunches we serve for free and reduced, and they reimburse us if it's a reimbursable meal. And that's what she monitored at one point, part of the day, of the 2 days that she was here, that it's required that students take 3 pieces out of 5, and at the high school, it's a little different. There are more pieces. It's a tremendous amount of rules and regulations that come with the food service. And I don't know why they didn't reimburse us for September. The state doesn't tell us everything, but we are expected to meet the demands of the deadlines and the requirements before and when they come. And if we don't, they can fine us. So our goal, my goal as one of my jobs as the food service director, was to make sure that hopefully, financially, they don't fine us, because obviously, we don't want that to happen because we can't afford that. So there were lots of people that made sure that the pieces worked. We had to change a few things at various schools. We've always complied with the menu and what we're serving. The two managers in the cafeteria, the elementary and at Pioneer, spend way more time last year and this year with our sales rep. And that all comes from a collaborative food bid, as I've told you before, of all of Western Mass, to see what we can buy that saves the most money. She kind of chuckled last week and said that this is the only district that applied for the pasta waiver, which I find incredulous, but that's what she said. And because we're following the rules. I mean, I think we need to, there are rules and regulations for as many as I can keep up with. We're trying to do that, and the cafeteria managers and the cafeteria workers are just, running as fast as they can to keep up with all the rules and regs.
Okay, one question I have of you, what is the pasta waiver?
They could have white bleach.
In 2010, when it came from the Obama administration, it was required that school lunches change totally. They have to serve all whole grain, no white bread, no white pasta. And this is the first year that the state has allowed school districts to write waivers to serve something besides whole grain pasta. And it's not pasta all-inclusive. I had to write spaghetti/linguine, and she told me last week, I asked her if it could include everything, and she said no. If the district wanted to do that, we'd need a waiver for every single piece of pasta. So we're gonna stick with the linguine and.
Now, do you see why it's so convoluted?
It's just
It's
overwhelming.
nuts, it's crazy.
And the kids participated in that at Pioneer.
I saw
did
the
a
picture of the
taste
survey
testing.
table.
I grabbed parents at open house the next night to sign, and the more evidence that you could provide, the more likely that we were to get it. And I never received any information until I called and asked when we would hear, and then they told me that we received the waiver. So again, the state puts lots of demands in all of our areas. It could be special ed, it could be, classroom curriculum, and we have to make sure that we keep up with that. But it sometimes doesn't go the other way for us to all have the information from them that we need.
Sharon first.
It sounds really cumbersome to do what we are asking you to do, to have the figures in alignment with the reports that we get. But as you said, if you could think about a way where we could get more information that would help us make more sense of how the budget is going, because I think as a school committee, we need to keep track of this and find out how it's going and be a little more transparent with numbers as quick as you can,
We did there were two of us, with someone's help, with Brenda looking at all the expenditures. We did it for last year because they really looked at last year when they're doing the review and the audit. And so far, what we've done is certainly on site now. So I do have that, but it's not broken down for every milk delivery and it's under dairy. I mean, it's under the companies that we purchase products from. So even that would give you more information.
Yes, I think that at least that's a start in the right direction, don't you
Yeah.
think?
David?
So what Gail just described is program compliance. It's clearly important, and we avoid fines, and it's a lot of work, clearly. But it's not providing us with meaningful financial information. We need a breakout of a few categories, meaningful categories of what our revenues are, so we understand this, where they're coming from. We need breakout of expenses. I mean, a Subway is a really profitable place. Their cost of goods is like 21%. 21% of $1 went to the napkin and the food inside the paper wrapper. We need to find out what our cost of food is. We need to, and this is important, but it's doubly important because we have this cumulative loss. And we maintained our compliance very nicely and went $250,000 in the hole. we're gonna ask the towns to come to the table and clear that problem. We can't do it again. And the way to find out is not to run a couple more years and see if we fixed it or not. So, we need some simple books, and the committee needs to decide if it's worth the expense. I kind of think it is.
Given our track record.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bob?
Hi, Pat. I'm just looking at the third lunch program. Maybe somebody can answer this question for me. The third one that talks about October. I'm looking at the total revenue. I know most kids don't pay for lunches, or they do.
Which one it is? This one, he said October.
They're qualified staff.
Well, I'm just looking at Northfield, for example. We served 90 lunches on each day, and we collected $425 for the month, which is $100 a week. I mean, so most people aren't paying that. I mean, how else do you read this? You got $425 total revenue for Northfield Elementary School. They serve 90 lunches per day. How does that? I don't care if you look at Bernardston, they serve 96 and you got a grant.
Those figures can't be correct.
Well,
Because look at September.
it, again,
There can't be a discrepancy of 5,000 for September for Northfield and 400 for October for Northfield.
So the report can't be right then.
the deposit, it's right
October.
for.
It could be just money coming in
Right.
September, people putting money in
Right.
their account.
Right. The money can be put in various ways, and I know that in the month of September, she didn't, and I know you asked about October. The bank traveling doesn't happen daily. So it's when deposits are made, it's when the USDA reimbursement comes, it's when parents decide to use the online banking and how much they put in, and how much they send in cash. You know, we do have guidelines, I'm not gonna say policy, but 3 years ago, we did guidelines for people to keep up with their payments, but I know that they don't go to the bank every single day.
But this is December 12th. Not only is October gone, November's gone.
So you're saying maybe a lot of people put some money on deposit for their kids in September,
Yeah.
so they wouldn't be having to think about it. I mean, here's 3 months worth of, take my, you know.
Right, some people might opt to
The
pay
income doesn't match what
$300, and
was
some
bought
people
that
may
day.
pay by the
Yeah.
week, some people pay, I don't think too many people pay just by the day, but they certainly pay by the rate.
Then you gotta look at expenses, why are expenses double in October versus September? That doesn't make sense
Well, and
either.
that's because when the commodities are delivered, that's when the government takes out the,
You do big purchases,
We
you're
can
gonna
only-
use over time.
2 months at a time.
we can control the money, but we can't control when they deposit it and when they charge us for the commodities.
David?
Any business that has inventories, and this was an argument about inventory, keeps track of them, so the bottom line is accurate, doesn't take a hit because of buying a whole bunch of beef, and you still have it. It's not putting you underwater, and you adjust with the inventory. Just another reason to have some books.
But if you look at the inventory, it doesn't increase from September to October, so how could you be stockpiling?
Or
for-
decrease?
I think it wasn't adjusted, that's what I think.
Yeah, it's not accurate. Okay.
All right, so you can hear our quandary.
All right, so we're gonna have to work on clearly
Make it
getting
more
you a
transparent.
report and work. It's gonna take a little time though to kind of tease it all out.
If we're gonna ask the towns to
That's
I
right.
step
agree
up,
with you.
have to
then
have-
we need to be able to fully understand
Yes, we do.
ourselves. I mean, take
Right,
ownership of it, here at the committee level.
Jeannie, you had your hand up.
Yes, Gail, I had a question. The October opening balance was a minus $239,906. The closing balance was $25,527 more. Why was there such an increase in that amount?
I see where you're looking on the opening balance. Could you,
Go down to the closing balance.
Okay.
And that's a difference of $25,527.
Because it was a profit,
Right, because
net
that's,
profit,
yeah,
a loss.
No,
it's right above it.
Plus this minus this is the sub.
mhm.
So this should be the difference between that and that.
Right, it is, but
And then those. and
why
then
do we have such a loss?
Ending balance.
Well, we have claims outstanding as well, 29,000 that we haven't been paid from the state. They owe us that money.
It's hard to look,
Opening balance, what you talking
I'm not making
I
any kind
think
of
she's not
excuses
looking at it.
because I hear everything you're
This is
saying.
the opening balance.
I'm just
here.
trying to
This is the
understand.
closing balance here.
It's so hard to go
By a
month
month,
by
yeah.
month because of how
Yeah.
The state.
And,
So funny that you guys
works
have been doing this
sometimes.
for years,
And I
but I
have lots
get
of
that.
questions
Yeah.
for the reviewer when he or she comes 2 weeks. They come the week of January 1st. So I'm
The money
hopeful
probably comes,
that they will have some
the audit for the finance.
information for us.
My question is, does the state pay 75% of the lunch program that we get, and the people pay 25%?
Yeah,
We're talking about getting in state money, is that we get 3 times or 4 times as much from the state as we do from the people?
Gail has
We
the
get
answer.
reimbursed for a portion of the lunches that are free and reduced.
Is that number what the total claims due stands for? Is that the money that we're waiting for people to pay? Like, is that what that means by total claims due? Money that people owe us? Like the state or?
It could be, right,
Okay.
not just our people.
Right,
Could be
yeah, yeah,
state
the state
also.
or, okay.
All right. Is there any more lunch
The
questions?
can of worms you opened. They were happy with this report for years. And now they don't like it, which is fine.
No, we were not having.
Oh, you weren't? No? Okay.
Was what we had.
questions about it for years, and we were told, don't worry about it.
Okay.
Well, so now I'm on page 18.
Oh, you're
Oh,
there.
oh, still, oh.
Okay, that's all right. All
Okay.
right, we're on page 18, all right?
Okay,
Okay, I'm under Bernardston and Pioneer Activity Funds, budgeted 0.
Uh-huh.
oh, that's my phone.
Okay, so there's a Bernardston line and a PVRS line, both budgeted 0. One shows $9,660 worth of expenditures, and one shows $1,189 worth of expenditures. And I'm just trying to understand.
There's an activities account?
It's a-
Well, so that, the money goes into the activities account, and it should,
Doesn't look like it was
But it's
used.
showing expenditures.
right, so an activity account is one that's for the students, and it's in control of the principals. And they can write checks out of their activities account and put money into the activities account. I have no idea why it's on, can I see the code?
Oh, yeah.
One is for the elementary and one
Yeah.
is for the,
There's 10 grand worth of money floating around in these accounts.
Out of which
The other one.
shows
This one here.
Pioneer Valley, 1130. I don't, that,
I just want to understand when I look at it, why
look at
there's,
this.
you know.
I mean,
see, it's an
how it all
activities
works.
fund and they use 9,000. I'm thinking that might have been the play. But it came out, it's those activities like, the boosters, no, that's not a good example. But, any account that the kids put money into, like for trips and leave. So part of it, the band brings money into their activities account and they spend the money to go on the trips or go on, to do parades or anything like that.
Can we find out and let us know?
Well, of what, yeah, I can
What
look at,
those figures
I
That's a
don't
lot of
know.
money.
So,
We
I
shouldn't
know,
be
we have all
guessing.
of them. Well, I think it should be in the, you know how we got the audit from the activities account? That's why I asked for the audit, because I wasn't clear on what was going on with the money. That audit, I'm going to follow to a T about what needs to be done. And so next month, I'm gonna ask you to eliminate some of those funds, transfer some of those funds and create revolving accounts for them for more accountability.
And we could see a report on
And
how
you-
those activities are being
Yes,
spent.
yeah,
That would
and
be
right
really
now,
great.
the only way you can do it is that the secretary in the office keeps a paper ledger on it. So it's
Yeah, 'cause
not,
this number comes from somewhere.
I think probably Bob can answer
That's
that.
not,
That's for the scholastic book fair that we just had. It's money in, money out.
Right.
right,
You had to buy the books and then you,
$1,200
right. And the principals are in control of those accounts. But I think that when we look at that audit, you'll see there's clearly ways to make them more secure.
zero, and
So,
then there's
So you're gonna
expenditure.
create a new system for that?
Why?
Well, I'm gonna follow
why
what
is
the
it
auditor
there?
said.
Because general fund is the only fund that's budgeted, all of your, and I'm just speaking from an accountant standpoint and knowing mass finance law.
is that from?
Anytime you have a fund that's not general fund, there
proposed
isn't a
treasurer.
budget associated with that, those aren't appropriated monies. You have an activities fund or just like a grant, and your ins and outs have to net at the end of the year on a fund balance. But I think just figuring out how to get that information out of budget sense for you so that you can see the full funds ins
Yeah.
and outs on a monthly basis is what you guys
That's
are
what I'm
looking
asking
for.
yeah. Just make it a little easier.
Thank you.
Can we find out who she is? None of us know.
She will
who
be
she is.
introduced in just a little
Yeah,
bit.
she will be.
Speaking, it'd be nice to know who she is.
I think we have her resume in front of me.
Excuse me?
I think I'm guessing that we might have her resume in front of me.
Oh, I'm guessing it, but I don't know.
Right, right.
Okay, so moving on.
I
Apparently,
don't have any more, just in case you're wondering.
that's why I was trying to quick. I was doing it quick before you could say anything.
We figured you
Well,
were
I
done.
had some.
You do when you're holding back.
Right, I
No, I got to the bottom of my page.
Yeah, but this is this is only this page. We
just
don't
got
know what
the
one's
one
got
before.
hidden on before there.
All right,
Okay, so moving on to the Norms Committee report. Deb, I think you sort of spearheaded this, so you want to lead us through it?
So, last full school committee meeting, the school committee basically, the school committee asked for an ad hoc group to get together to put together norms so that we could be a better team, more solidified in working together. So we had 3 folks that participated, and also Ruth joined us. And the paperwork that I used to help us was from the training that we had a couple weeks back from the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, Protocols and Best Practices for Effective School Committee Meetings. So I used that and sample sheets from other schools in Massachusetts that had norms and standards already in their schools, working with them. So the committee, Sharon typed up one aspect and I typed up another aspect, and then as the group went through each one and we formulated what would work best for the school committee to be a cohesive group. And Sharon came up with a short set of norms for the school committee that we would use at each meeting, and kind of, I guess, Pat, you would read at the meeting, and that would be our start. So Sharon, would you like to read what you wrote up?
So the norms that I pulled out of basically the same information that Deb had should be read at the beginning of each meeting, and probably would go to everybody in the room, not just the school committee, but the audience as well. So to start out, this was pulled right out of the Mass Association of School Committee best practices. Democracy demands the individual use of one's best judgment as one perceives it, rather than succumbing to the will of another. whether it is resolving a matter of policy, fulfilling your fiduciary responsibilities, or providing leadership. We will advocate for all students in Pioneer Valley Regional School District. This is always our first order of business. The school committee members agree to thoughtfully seek and support solutions that will provide the greatest benefits to the students. Number one, the school committee acknowledges that a school committee meeting is a meeting of school committee members that is held in public, not a public meeting. All school committee members should feel free to express their opinions and beliefs about issues. Discussions will be open and encourage candor and assume positive intent. School committee members agree to focus on issues rather than personalities. The committee will be open to new and veteran members' ideas and opinions. Respect each other and their opinions. Encourage debate and differing points of view and speak with care and respect. We should debate issues, not one another. Build trust. Number 7, avoid words and actions that create a negative impression of an individual, the school committee, or district. Number 8, we would work to build trust between and among school committee members and the superintendent by treating everyone with dignity and respect, even in times of disagreement. And the source was Mass Association of School Committee.
So that one will be read at every meeting. And then we have a longer version, which again was taken from the Mass Association of School Committees Protocol and Best Practices. Do you want me to read?
No, I think they can read out.
So the other one that's more lengthy is a 2-page document, norms and standards for the year 2017-2018 for the Pioneer Valley Regional School Committee. And as a group, the ad hoc group went through this and highlighted it would be a reference tool for the school committee. And when any of us are off track, we police ourselves, so it's our responsibility to kind of touch base with the chair and kind of remind whoever's off track to do a quick look at the norms and standards, and the bold print would be our essential guide on a quick look basis to just get us back on track. Also with this, there was a chain of command of communication policy that basically goes with this paperwork. And there's a draft of the file KE public complaints. Legal reference was Mass General Law 76.5. And the chain of command for any issues would be the teacher, school building administrator, the superintendent, and the school committee. Policies will have to go through the policy subcommittee and then come back to the full committee for a vote. The second policy that would come into effect would be school committees and staff communication, file BHC, and this just breaks down communications from the staff to the school committee, from the school committee to the staff. That would be incorporated in this document for the norms. The third one, which we really didn't touch base too much on it, and it's guidelines for public comment, file BEDHE, and this just talks about basic rules and guidelines in the public aspect, and that no person should address the meeting without permission from the chair, that all persons shall at the request of the chair be silent, No person shall disrupt the proceedings of a meeting of a public body. After clear warning from the chair, a person continues to disrupt the proceedings, the chair may order the person to withdraw from the meeting. And then there's just other guidelines in regards to public comment, how much time there is, in that all things have to really run through the chair and the superintendent. So these policies will go to the subcommittee, policy subcommittee, and then come to full committee for full approval.
Make a clarification is that the norms that we would read before each meeting are not policy. And they weren't drafted to intend that. Or the norms and standards they are not a policy either, but the other things we discussed are and will go to the committee, subcommittee.
Anybody have any input? Everybody's silent. All right.
I feel like I need to take some time with these and look at them
Right.
outside the meeting.
Yes, I think
Yeah.
that's a good idea. And we won't be, hopefully we'll be having a policy subcommittee meeting between now and our next meeting.
That'd be great.
Can discuss those and then get back to the committee in January. Does that sound okay? Yeah, Jeannie?
But we should be able to do the norms and standards at our next meeting and approve them.
Yes, yeah.
Without them going to the policy
Right,
subcommittee.
right. But we can take home the other things to, what was that, Sharon?
I thought we were going to do them tonight.
It's up to whatever people
I
want to
want to
do.
look at them and read them a bit, I'm sorry. I didn't do it enough ahead of time.
All right. People want to wait till next
I
time?
don't feel ready.
What was all in here? Nothing, no words have changed, it's all in here.
Did you read this when you were having the training?
I did,
From the leadership?
but I didn't know you were going to give it to me. I don't want to have a new document that this important put in front of me and be asked to vote on it in a moment. I'd like to just read it, vote on it next month, if
David?
that's possible.
I think this is really good, and in the meantime, I say we live by these.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your work.
Yes.
It's good work.
You're welcome.
Jeannie?
I know we didn't read all of them, the norms and standards, just the short version. One of the things I would like to bring up that we did discuss for quite a while is that members will attend meetings and be prepared and ready to discuss agenda items and to strive for the best decisions. Basically, we talked about coming to meetings and being prepared. And so that includes, and I know for me, I sometimes forget until the morning of the meeting, but reading through the documents that I have received, so I would be ready to discuss them at that meeting. And I think that's something that we all have to strive to be a little bit more prepared with, is checking our email, checking documents, and being able to discuss them at the next meeting. Because if we keep putting things off till the next meeting, it's going to take a long time to accomplish some things.
So, I'm sorry.
Yes, go for it.
So my hope is that each and every one of the school committee members actually reads these. I didn't feel it was sufficient for me to read through all of them. I think we're all quite capable of reading them, but I would really like everybody on the committee to read these and
Do their homework.
this is something that I think we need to follow.
I think so too.
It
I think
makes
it's
us
important.
more professional.
Right.
This isn't the first time we've seen this document either. I mean, it's been a couple of times. It's been, I don't know when we got it, and it's been in here.
All right.
Straight out of there.
So let's go home, do our homework, and then in January, we will vote. And like David said, we'll live by these like they were voted in the preceding month. which brings us to our student report. So you guys thought you were off the hook, but you're not. Sorry.
Your turn,
So,
Ella.
your turn.
You guys are up.
The two of you.
See? Okay, attention, children.
Don't talk to Mr. Bell. He'll get you in trouble every time.
me.
Do we have to give you a detention, Mr. Bell?
Have to
I
stay
think
to
you need to give me a warning, and then if I do it again,
All right,
I'll take the detention.
Okay, that works.
so advised.
Put the hat on. All right, so some great things that have been happening lately was last Saturday, we had a special day in Northfield. And it was really great to see the members of Pioneer go and help out. Like in the library, there was everyone helping out kids pick out toys. And we had the NHS collecting donations, and we had the band caroling, and also collecting donations for DC. So it was really great to see everyone come as a community and work together.
Great.
Everyone seemed like they had a nice time.
And to just to add on to that, we got a pretty big donation from the Northfield Kiwanis Club and Greenfield Savings Bank for a trip to DC in April. It's the 26th and 29th, I'm pretty sure. And so that's really great. We're very excited about that. We were on the radio a little bit. Danger was there, which was awesome. We had a good time. And still talking about band, we have our holiday concert tomorrow at 7. So both middle school and high school band will be performing. They actually separated chorus and band this year. So chorus already performed on Wednesday, and I heard they had a great concert. Yeah.
Didn't the winery also make a pretty substantial donation?
I think they did too. There was a third one, because
Yeah.
I think we got a total of 600.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
where that
It
all
was
added
really-
up.
We made a little over 600.
I was really
Nice.
impressed.
That's great.
We're very excited, because it's going to contribute a lot to
That's great.
sit on a trip, but that sounds awesome.
Nice. All right.
I think that's it. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, thank you. Can you tell us when your break is and when that kind of stuff?
When, this coming break?
Yeah.
The
Vacation.
December break. So we get off the 23rd. Is that right? The 23rd is Friday. No, we get off the 22nd, which is Friday.
Yeah.
And then the 23rd is Saturday. And then
Okay, and then you go back at what day?
And we go back the 1st of January, it's the 2nd. Okay, I know it's the 2nd. I'm saying the 1st of January is a Monday, so we get back to Tuesday the 2nd.
Okay,
I was
great.
giving the actual.
I know, you're doing great.
Okay, before Gina gets us all in trouble. Not that she would, but anyhow. Principals, how about if we start with Warwick and work around the room? How's that?
Do you want me to come to the table or?
I don't think it's necessary.
It's been a quiet weekend like we'll be gone. No, things are going well up in Warwick. We, unfortunately, we postponed our winter concert for a beautiful snowstorm, but we are on for next Tuesday at 6:30, and you are all invited. Really, it's a must-see event. A lot of good work going on in the school, children very excited, teachers teaching like there's no tomorrow. We're wrestling, I will tell you right now, we are wrestling with some compliance issues at Warwick Community School. We had the compliance officer for the western part of the state sent by the fire marshal to Warwick Community School, and we received a document afterwards that necessitated that we took down all our bulletin boards in the hallway and removed the rocking chairs from the foyer.
It's hard for me.
And it was very difficult, and we're trying to work things out now. Basically, what we were told initially was that anything that went up on hall bulletin boards needed to be covered, laminated, covered in plastic. Well, we have some issues with covering everything in plastic, or we could go to fire retardant paper, which is very expensive. So we're trying to work things out. Most recently, Chief Gates from Warwick, from the Warwick department, talked again with the compliance officer out of Springfield, and it seemed to shift a little bit. So we're still trying to work out the details, but we very much look forward to having our children's beautiful work back up on the walls, and still being in compliance, because obviously we want to, safety is first and foremost. Apart from that, we had our parent-teacher conferences. As usual, we had all but one family show up for their conferences, and they went very well, very smoothly. I just need to say the teachers are so dedicated and so good with their communication with parents as well as teachers.
Thank you. Gail?
Could I just interject a piece of another one of my hats is safety and security. And this is a fine example of the state of Massachusetts putting school districts in the middle, because 2 to 3 years ago, well, 3 years ago, we started working with the state police task force to make our schools safe. And many of the things that we've been experiencing in Warwick, when Elizabeth and I meet with the fire chief and the state fire marshal, are opposite of what we've been told from the state police. So I talked to both of them and suggested that perhaps they could talk to their higher ups and maybe they could talk at the top state level. And pretty much that won't happen, they said. But I just reiterated, as well as Elizabeth did, that we're stuck in the middle. We're trying to make sure that everyone's safe and secure, yet the fire department at the state level is giving us a different message. So we're trying to do everything we can to please everyone, but there's definitely some conflict in the messages we're getting from those two departments.
Hang in there, it will get better.
And I will say that, I want to say that Fire Chief Gates up in Warwick has been very supportive.
Yes.
It's not coming from our fire department.
No.
It's coming from the state.
Right. I think I see sped hidden between back there. Thank you.
And guess what? I have nothing really to say.
Oh, nice. Life is good. That's unusual for you. I like it. Yes, you can.
Any news on the grant that you were working on?
Yes, I did not get that grant, but I got $1,000.
Okay.
Good.
That was
Good.
a lot less
Conservation
than
prize.
last year, but I got the, what do you want to call it, prize? Yes, thank you. It has to do with resource allocation, so I thought it does fit in with the general goal of the district. I don't know how that's going to play out as yet, but I got $1,000 to cover some of those expenses. So, that's why I didn't really want to say anything, because I'm not sure exactly how this is going to play out. But there's a network of schools, because as you know, we're not the only ones in the area, or in the state for that matter, that, have declining revenue and, so we're all trying to figure it out. So we're creating a network of people to talk to each other so we can maybe help each other out. So when I get more information about how that's going to work, I'll let you know.
Great.
Thanks a bunch.
That's too bad. Thanks for trying.
Yeah. And Bob?
Sure. Well, at Bernardston today, Renee Keir's kindergarten class walked down to the Bernardston Senior Center, socializing and presenting some holiday gifts that they collected. Renee has a thing, Mrs. Claus for a Cause, and so some small food items and toiletries, things like that. And then the seniors presented the kindergartners with some build a gingerbread kit. And, so some of them already got busy on that. Yesterday in Jen Kaminsky's third grade classroom, the Palmer Fish Hatchery delivered 200 brown trout eggs. And so now the third graders are like expected parents in the and waiting for hatching. But Jen Kaminsky was relating to the fellow that brought the eggs that last year when they did their release of the 2-inch fingerlings, that they saw other trout in the stream where they release, and so they were hoping that what they're doing is making a difference and bringing them back. Let's see, the 4th and 6th graders at both Pearl Roads and Bernardston read the book Wonder, and then they went down to a showing over in Greenfield of the movie. So obviously quite moving, really impressed. And Kelly Policiano's 6th grade class at Bernardston is a certified Wonder Classroom. They've been registered because of some of the good deeds and things that the classroom students have been doing, ranging from raising money for hurricane relief and local efforts as well. Our AmeriCorps volunteers, we've got 2 that are at Bernardston 2 days a week, 2 that are at Pearl Rose 1 day a week, and they're busy doing environmental science units already. We've had our Pearl Roads concert last Wednesday. Our Bernardston primary concert was snowed out on Tuesday. That'll happen next Tuesday. And our upper concert will be on Monday night at 6:30. Turkey Trot last month went very well, and we had participation from Forward Community School and Pearl Roads, and Sue Scott delivered a minivan and a half of canned goods to the Survival Center over in Turner's Falls. So that students had a sort of entry fee of a canned good to participate. But it was a great event with a lot of support from the Bernardston Fire Department and the Police Department, local community. BNC TV was there, so if you want to see more of the event, you can look at that online too.
The pictures in the paper were great.
You had good press.
Yeah. Great coverage
Newspaper
too,
coverage.
Recorder as well. Yeah.
Okay. Megan, do you have anything to tell
I
us?
do. My list actually got longer after listening to previous presentations. So our 6th grade teacher, Mr. Lubry, who teaches science for all of our 6th graders, also received the trout, and he's running that same program that your 3rd grade is, so that's exciting. I used to participate as a teacher in the salmon program before that was shut down, so it's kind of nice to see that tank all ready to go. Brings back good memories. We also have AmeriCorps coming to us. They just recently started, and this is Northfield's first time, to my knowledge, of having AmeriCorps teaching science throughout most of the grades. So that's exciting. We had our Thanksgiving food drive just after the last school committee meeting. So that's an annual, or I think it was our third or fourth annual food drive for the food pantry in Northfield. And we raised we collected over 700 items compared to less than 500 last year. So that was exciting to far exceed last year's total. We were lucky enough to not have our winter concert snowed out last night, and it was wonderful, although very cold outside. But everybody did a great job, and I really appreciate Lynette Snedeker and Kim Wallach for their music work that they do with our students, and Hillary Farrow, who provided artwork displayed around in the gym as well as the hallways, which was nice to see. We have our 6th grade play happening next Thursday. They're doing a version of the Sadako and the 1,000 Paper Cranes. And so they've been reading the short story version to classrooms and making paper cranes for the play. So that'll be exciting to see. Heath Cummings, our school resource officer, has been visiting with me, and we've been making plans around how to best utilize his services. He's been really, he's hit the ground running, and he's very invested in getting into the schools. So he is coming tomorrow to do an internet safety presentation for our 4th through 6th grade students, kind of focusing on online safety relating to gaming, things like that might come up over the holidays with new devices in kids' hands or games or whatnot. And he'll be coming back in January to talk to our 5th and 6th graders about the social media issues that are coming up in elementary schools. So it's nice to have his support, and he's been in the building at concerts and appearing whenever he can, which is nice to see. A big thank you to many people. We had new sets of swings installed just before the ground froze on a very cold morning. So the PTO had they had asked for money from the town a year ago, and the town appropriated $10,000 for replacing swings that were well over 40 years. The Highway Department helped to remove the old swings and came on a Saturday with equipment to help install the new swings, which was wonderful. We would not have been able to do that without their help, or it would have taken much longer. Parent volunteers, staff volunteers, so we assembled and installed the swings, as well as, I forget the amount, but a huge amount of playground chips that took a lot of time and effort to spread. And I just want to thank our PTO. They are a pretty amazing PTO, and I specifically want to thank Cheryl George and her family, and I say family because her 2 kids are often in tow for all of these events, and her husband is usually put to work as well. So I just want to recognize them as well. So we have 2 new sets of swings, which is very exciting.
Great. They look nice, too.
They do look
Really
nice.
do.
Yeah.
Thank you. Gina, you're up.
I'm going to scoot up.
Okay, go right here.
So, athletic news, we had, probably the first time in a while, we actually had all of our coaches in place on the first day of practice. And I'm behaving myself quite nicely as the assistant coach for track. I felt wrong that I can do this.
Assistant.
I'm the assistant. Our numbers are fantastic for our sports this winter. We sadly had to not have wrestling. We had 3 kids sign up. So, wrestling has been struggling for several years now. So that sport, we just couldn't, with 3 signed up, there's just no way. But our track numbers are at 51 with boys and girls. So that broke down to there's 22 girls and 29 boys on the indoor track team. So we discovered that we can't all fit on a bus. So the Coty family has very graciously offered their van, so we drive the van down for the extras. Basketball, our numbers are very strong. We did hold tryouts for middle school kids to move up to that JV level, just to balance out some of the teams. Our boys team right now, varsity, is struggling a little bit with injuries, and so we had to make sure that we could field all those 3 levels. So our middle school team, boys have 13, which is obviously very strong numbers. And then the boys JV varsity is at 21. So those are good, strong numbers. Middle school, we ended up moving up 4 girls for the JV level. So the middle school girls is at 11. So again, very strong. And then 20 for that JV varsity. So our numbers are looking really nice. The tryouts went very smoothly with the new policy that we put in, and the middle school was opened up to 7th and 8th graders, and we had 7th and 8th graders excited to try out, and they tried out, and I cannot say enough how awesome our coaches were on really paying attention to the physical piece of the game and making sure that those kids are going to be ready. I have a lot of respect for the coaches and how they go about their business, and they did a really, really nice job. So I appreciated that. So that track started last week. We had our first meet last week, and the boys won their first meet by 1 point, so that was exciting. And then basketball started last night for our varsity teams, and then middle school started today. So we are definitely on the move. Next week we have a full week. We also had our football banquet because they waited until after their season was over, because they obviously had a Thanksgiving Day game. And so at the end of their season, we were able to raise a banner with Wyatt Keith's name on it. He had 1,000 yards rushing. So we put his name up on the banner. And I think at the last meeting we had talked about some of the all-stars that we had for the fall. And there were 5 all-stars, and I'm totally skipping the names of 2 of them, so hopefully Jake can help me. For football, we had Jake Wallace, Jake Kaminsky, and Wyatt Keith.
We have Carl.
Carl Wheeler.
Plus.
And there's one more, and I'm sorry that I cannot, the name is totally escaping me. Scott Prober, our quarterback. And there was a really fun article in the paper about fantasy football, and that was really fun to see. 3 or 4 of our kids got put on that fantasy football team, top 5. And that was really a fun article. It's on my bulletin board outside my office. That's not laminated, but it's still there. So that's my football, but I wanted to share some other Pioneer news, if I can. So today, the Students of the Month were announced. And so for 7th grade, Alexis Pratt. 8th grade was Ryan Potter and Molly Johnson. 9th grade was Haley Burt. And 10th grade was Ella Cote. And 11th grade was Olivia Rowe. And 12th grade was Eli Kester.
Okay. It's nice to hear those names.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great, thank you.
You want?
Is that it?
That's all I got.
Okay, that's good. We like it, thanks. Heart Committee, are you reporting on the Heart Committee or someone else?
I am.
Okay.
I am your reporter.
All right.
So the Heart Committee met last week on the 6th. And prior to that, several of us met with the Gil Montague group. What's that group called? The Civic Leaders Group.
Yeah, I
So
can't remember.
Ginger and Tony and Michelle and I got there a little late because I was doing my walk, which was great.
You did well.
And it was basically just to meet the group that's working along similar lines to the Heart Committee, looking at efficiencies and creative ways to deal with our financial challenges. Again, as a combined group of town government people and school committee people and community people. And we will continue to sort of visit each other's meetings. Our notes are posted at the Bernardston website, I believe, the Heart Committee notes. And one of the things I did ask the superintendent in Gil Montague was, so Michael, we've been talking about the idea of sharing a superintendent. What do you think about that? And he said, divorce. And I said, so I think you're referring to that many more meetings and that many more groups you're trying to work with, and that we might need other structures if we were to try to work in this bigger group. And he said, well, really what I think is that you're asking an administrator who's already working full-time in a district to take on an entire another district. You're going to have to pay them more money. You're going to have to provide support staff for them. And I don't see it as a money saver in the long run. So that was just an interesting thing to just begin talking about. You know, what do you think? How does this work? So I suggested, you know, the things that I think really drive our budget crazy are special ed, health costs, and transportation. If there are ways that we could support each other along those lines, maybe we could help each other, you know, with some creative ideas. So we will continue to talk. The RFP from our committee is still not out because right as we were about to release it was when the efficiency and regionalization grants come out, and they're working along the same exact lines that our group is working on. So we have $25,000, and then as soon as it's just bizarre to us that at the same time that we were getting our money, within a week the state was releasing information online about these $200,000 grants that we didn't know about. I mean, I found out about it the day before we had our special meeting, I think. So we're trying to not waste that money. We're trying to wait and see who gets what grant and where can we collaborate and get the most bang for our buck. So on some level, it's very exciting to be meeting with other people and hearing their ideas and collaborating. We will, at our next meeting, be taking a look at the district agreement. There are a couple of people on our committee that have taken a really good look at that and have provided us with a draft with edits and recommendations, and so we'll be spending our next meeting really digging into those recommendations. I met with Paul Mark on the 4th, and just to ask him about, you know, why why are we all asking the same questions but not working together? You know, there's the whole Rural Coalition of Schools group that's asking very similar questions to the Gil-Montague group, which is to the Hart Committee. And it doesn't seem like a very efficient way for Franklin County to be doing business right now. So I asked him if he would be willing to consider convening a meeting of all of us so that we could start to have a common conversation and come to some common understandings and share ideas. So
Well, when you say all of us, you mean all the school districts in Franklin County?
yeah,
That's
like
awesome.
there's a whole, you know, Mohawk Regional Schools
Yeah,
thing that's
yeah.
going on. There's the Gil Montague group talking to tech and getting their
Uh-huh.
grant, and our little Heart Committee had a very similar thrust with our little grant. So he said that he would be willing to reach out to Bob Pura and
Oh, nice.
at GCC and see if that was possible, perhaps sometime in February. And in the meantime, I'm just trying to learn as much as I can about the history of rural schools and what is how to understand things currently. So I've been doing some research and reading some reports. There's a report called the Rural Matters Report for 2017 that you can find online. It's very interesting. Yeah, so we're trying to get educated about the challenges of rural districts. We're looking to collaborate. We're going to work on the district agreement, and we're kind of holding our RFP until we find out about the regionalization grants. And I was told that the grants we'll find out in December because they're supposed to start in January.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And I hadn't heard a date. So
Right,
that's good.
right, I hadn't either until recently.
Did you hear when in December?
No.
30th,
Do you know,
maybe?
Ruth?
I have
Do you
no
know?
idea.
Yeah.
January 2nd.
So we are still looking for members. We had a recent resignation from a Bernardston seat, and we're still trying to fill a seat from Warwick where we had a resignation, so we're looking for interested members.
And that was
It's a great group to work with, very forward-thinking and energetic, and yeah, it's good.
Good.
And we could use one more representative from our committee also, so if anyone is interested, either sitting at this table or sitting in the chairs out there, let Sue know, or Bob know, or anyone that's on that committee. Now it's to you.
Okay, so I'd like to just really briefly not dig into this the encumbrance report, but I did give you two pieces of information. One is this one, it is the payable, so it's what Brenda does, and you can see the PO number, it was, yeah, PO number,
Extra one here.
the amount of the PO, date, paid to date, and the variance, and then you can see the department that it comes from. It's this one, it looks like this, and it was added. Here, want to give this to
There's
her?
an extra one.
People getting organized. Has the warrant gone around?
Huh?
They had, but you did not get it, I don't think.
Did you not?
Hold on, I'll make sure this is the right one. Yes, it is. And when you finish, maybe you can pass them over to them. Thank you, guys.
Bye, guys.
Have a great, Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So, when talking to Brenda about, you know, what she encumbered, you know, because sometimes we had encumbered some money just to make sure that we were, you know, not going to go over budget, but we didn't do that. So what you have here is what she realistically sees for each of these lines. And you can go through them yourself and see, like, Survey Monkey. I mean, that's an example. I don't know. It's $204. We haven't spent anything to date. We still have this $204. So does that mean that, you know, the principals aren't going to be using the $204? But it was encumbered for a reason, because typically they would use Survey Monkey. And so if you go down this list, you're going to see lots of things that encumbered, and like the, you know, you can look at them and you can decide or think about whether it's, really needs to be encumbered, but between Brenda and I and what we think we need, we didn't in a prior year, we had put some extra money into fuel, because we were worried that, we're gonna go over on a line like that. But given where we are this year, which is different than the past couple of years when we've been doing that, these are true encumbrances of money that we think we're actually gonna need for these lines. So there's not a lot of fluff in the payables. Yep.
Yeah, so, I mean, any of the figures, like the rest of the figures from the principals,
That's different, we're gonna go, these are just payables, okay? So instead of taking the time now, take some time, look at it, call me, or I'll come over, or whatever, and we can kind of go through it and answer your questions and, kind of do it that way for the payables. So then I also gave
Can I
you.
just make one clarifying point?
Sure, go ahead.
I think these PO amounts are what show up in here as the PO amount that's encumbered, and then you can see what was actually spent related to what was encumbered in the PO amount, right?
Right, but yes, yeah. So this is just the same version
Yeah,
of,
all in
okay?
one place, yeah.
And so then I printed out the entire expenditure report. I highlighted mine, which you don't have highlighted. But like, if you look on the first page, you'll see superintendent salary, and it has a $3,046 still remaining. That means that's money that's available to you, because with the payables, Suzanne takes out exactly what the salaries are gonna be for the year. So really, with this report, looking at the salaries is what would make sense to see where the extra money is. So now we have our tech coordinator down at the bottom of this page, and it has 75,000 as the budget, and then you go over and it has 43,000.
Am I looking at the right one?
No, it's this one. There's you got it? Did you not get another one?
No.
You got it? Okay.
I think you got it there somewhere.
So you look at that, and even with encumbrances, there's a $43,480 there that looks like it can be used. But if you look at the next page, because sometimes once we create this report, people move to different areas, and so they're still in the budget line that they were originally. So if you look at the tech salaries, they're at a negative. So you have to look at balancing those out. But again, I think that these lines, once we get them back in line, because Karen's last day is tomorrow, and we're hiring a very part-time person to cover that. We have 2 new people that we're paying less than the original people. So I don't think it's all worked out in this yet, but that's why those lines look like they're a little messed up, but I think we're gonna be okay. If you look at the bottom of that page and you look at some of the principal salaries, there's, again, there's a $35,268 that's left over, but I think as you look at the next, which you'll see that there's some, I think we have money, but you have to look at the other salary lines on these other pages, because especially with special ed and especially with some of the paras, they were moved afterwards, and there were changes. I can make those changes, although would put Suzanne right over the edge, because she has it all set up in her computer system now to just, so we could manually make adjustments if you wanted to actually see each of these salary lines representative exactly what they are. But, so there is some money, the principal salaries in the 2 at the end, 2.1, that would be the money that would be, the $35,268 would be the money left over from Deanna leaving and with Bob coming.
But then if you look at shared teacher salaries, it's like $25,000. It's on page 4, $25,000 in the red. It's right about in the middle of the page.
Oh, so 25,000, but look right below it, it's a $44,000 positive. So that's why you have to take some time to really look and see, but there definitely is some money in the salary lines that could be freed up. And especially if you look at the next page 5, it's almost all positive, and then you have a 14,000 for special needs instructional assistants. Again, we had to hire more instructional assistants than we had anticipated, and when you get a one-to-one, you have to add them in. So, so those changes. So you need this report to kind of go through, and then the library instructional assistant is an 8,000 positive in that line.
So if I come over sometime.
Yeah, so if you want to, come over and take a look at it, I think it's a better way to look at it, and then I can dig down and give you the details of each one of them as well. I think it's better time than going through it tonight, but this is the documentation that I think would help you the most to see where the variances are.
You're right. That's good, thank you.
Okay.
In the last page, before we leave, that's the budgeted amount that the towns approved, the 14,06758.
Yes.
No,
Wait, where is it?
The last page, page
no, the
15.
town's only approved the assessment.
Right, that's the total budget with chapter 70 and all the other revenues that we get.
Okay.
So total is what it is.
Right, but it's the total that was voted on from different revenue sources.
But we don't have the revenue to match that,
Hmm?
do we?
We
voted that budget, yeah.
Right, but
You can't
so-
say we have the revenue to match it, I mean.
No, because the revenues was reduced because of transportation of 200,000, but we also have the 200,000 in the health that is gonna offset that 200,000.
So when I go to the last page,
Mm-hmm.
page 15, and it extends to the budget balance percentage remaining, the last
Scary,
column.
isn't it?
Well, it says we've got $2.2 million unexpended.
Mm-hmm.
And how much of that is just not been encumbered, and how much of that is money we could...
Available.
So, you have to look at the payroll, because the health insurance is not encumbered. The stipend salaries, so like people, the coaches and all that, that's not encumbered. So those things aren't encumbered. What are the other salary lines that might, I think it's a health and then and I think, not all of the substitute lines aren't encumbered, and if you look at those are scary, because the percentage of substitutes that I had that.
Has that gone up?
Well, no, what's scary is how much has already been used.
Yeah,
Hold on.
it's been a lot of illness this
Yeah.
fall.
Well, it's interesting if you look at the different schools. Where is my substitute line is page 5.
Yeah.
And if you look at,
Which one is substitute lines, or all of them?
they're all right there.
Yeah, I know, but which one?
The top one is Bernardston, but looking over to the way right, the percentage, there's still 50.37% of the budget left remaining, and we're halfway through the year about. The next line is 73%, and that's Leiden. And then if you look at the following one, 3, which is Northfield, they have 52%, almost 53%. And then Warwick would be 78%. But then you go to Pioneer, we only have 4.2% left of the budget.
They better not get that.
That's for 5 months.
Exactly. It's last year, we had, at the end of the year, we had $87,000 in substitute. And now we're through pretty much half a year, and we budgeted 35. So if we double that, we're talking $70,000 in subs that we have not budgeted for.
So what happens there is you just have to rob Peter to pay Paul kind of thing.
Well, it goes to what David asked, how could we use that money in a productive
Exactly.
way?
Exactly.
That substitute problem is a problem, and I don't know how we address it, because if, and our reluctance in budgeting is, do we really want to put another 35,000 in there, and then what are we going to take away from the students to be able to meet that 70,000?
There's contractual obligation too there with the substitutes that you need to get negotiations coming up. I don't know if you can do anything about that there, but.
Well, we
I
can't
don't
do
know.
anything
I
about
can-
it until the new contract.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, yeah.
So
But it won't affect this
I
year.
could give you historic, I can look back and try to give you
Yeah, how did we
historic.
not plan enough for
Why
that? Is
is
it
there such a
unusual
huge
just in this
difference
year? 'Cause
Between
we have so many
Pioneer
fewer staff, how can we,
and every other
is that why we have more subs? I don't know.
Looking to see what.
Exactly.
Just kidding.
Exactly.
Page
Do we
five.
have subs because we needed to cover for staff that got ripped or are not here any longer? And
No,
we're using subs
this
for
is,
that?
this is people called in to replace teachers when they're out. And you saw the other schools are all pretty much, okay, so
Right on target, or?
I can do an analysis of you for the last
That
3
would
to
be
5
great.
years if you'd like me to do and bring that to you, but I did
Well,
want
and
to point
maybe,
that out.
Yeah, Jean could give us a sense of that. So on
Yeah.
page 14, I'm sorry.
Yep.
For Pioneer, that would be nice to see how that was figured
Right.
out, that they only
Because
have
we're gonna have to budget for
4.27.
next year soon.
Exactly, yeah, it won't be long.
What did we budget last year for substitutes for Pioneer?
About 35 or 40. You know what, when we had to go back and cut stuff, we cut back
That was
subs.
one
I
of
mean,
the ones
because
you
it's,
cut.
what are you going to cut?
Yeah.
What did you want?
Page 14 has the health and life insurance number, 1,090,000, 91,000 almost.
Right, that makes about, I don't know where you are, but that
On
sounds
page
about right.
14, in the middle.
Oh, right in the
Health
middle.
and life.
That's not encumbered, but that would impact that 2 million.
Correct,
And-
right, yeah, so it's very tight.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's very tight. Okay, so yes, if you can come see me or whatever if people have questions.
I will.
Okay, oh, do you have questions?
Yeah, actually.
Well, just to note, it seems to me that health insurance premiums, that's a number that we could extrapolate from 5 months' experience and encumber. I'd like,
No one tried,
I'd
okay.
like that done. I like
Yeah.
everything that can be done.
Yeah,
Exactly, yeah.
that
My
seems really
second
reasonable.
observation
Those are
is-
known numbers.
Right.
Yeah, my second observation is that it looks to me that relative to the elementary schools, we under budgeted Pioneer. The Pioneer student population is roughly half of our district. They should have roughly half of our appropriation for substitutes. And they're about, there's some thousands of dollars less, I don't know, 11,000 or something. So, and that assumes that we were right on the elementary. And there may be differences in terms of student class sizes or other things that contribute, but we under budgeted there. I don't think we're overspending as much as we under budgeted. But so we have a picture of our substitute expenditure, and it probably makes sense to model forward and budget forward from that, because there's not much we can do about it.
Yeah.
And then we can encumber that for now.
Yeah.
Until there aren't significant footnotes to the encumbrance picture, the bottom line is only meaningful with all those footnotes.
Mhm. Yeah, I think you're right about those substitutes and how we probably under budgeted and maybe.
We haven't hit
a little
the
bit from
flu
other
season
schools.
yet
No, we
either,
haven't.
so.
Okay, so we'll take care of that
If you
for you.
could do that, that would be
Not a
good.
problem. Okay, and so now we have, long waited. As you know, Kelly will be, our treasurer will be leaving us at the end of the month. So, she's going to get us through, the Christmas and all of that, and she's done a really good job, and a letter of resignation will be coming forth, soon from her. And so in light of that, when she had told me that, I had started to look, and last year we, turned over every rock we could to try to find a new treasurer. So I had reached out to my Narragansett colleagues from before, some people that I really highly respect, and asked if they knew anybody showed the application. And they recommended Tanya Gaylord, who's here tonight. You can actually come up in the chair. And
Wait, let us get the spotlight.
And so we interviewed her, Stacy and I, and we, put her through the paces. And she was able to answer all of our questions. And so I thought I'd bring her forward to you tonight so that you could meet her, ask any questions, and potentially make a recommendation.
How many hours a week are you expecting to do work?
It's one day a week, just like the other treasurers were. And then they typically come in other times, so they're paid by that salary line that we had. It's a set salary amount. So when they have to come in and maybe go to banks or make some transfers on the off days, they just do that within the scope of their work.
So you're thinking 6.5 hours a week, 8 hours?
No, it's usually an 8-hour day. Yeah. Same thing that they've been doing for a while.
And
Yeah, so I don't know if you have any questions for Tanya, or?
My question is, I'll start it off. I see you've done all kinds of town business and private business and all that kind of stuff. But our experience is that if you aren't familiar with school, accounting, it's completely different, or not completely, but it's a little oddly different.
So
What's your take?
In the town of Ashburnham, I was the town accountant, so I was essentially the CFO for the town. So I worked very closely with our town administrator, the superintendent of the school district there as well, working on their capital budgets and the like, as well as a lot of my continuing education involved some of the DESE stuff that you guys are involved in. So even though I haven't necessarily done it in my day-to-day work, I have been exposed to the structure of the regional and the private school district accounting as far as the funds go, and the student activity accounts and the flow of funds and the budgeting that's involved.
Because that's been a bugaboo
Yeah.
with people, and I just wanted to make sure that was out there, because I
Yeah.
think that's something that people are questioning.
Yeah. And definitely, there's always a learning curve in anything that you take on, but I have, talked to Ruth, and I don't know what, because I haven't seen the full budget, obviously, if there's continuing education for the treasurer position, professional development, whatever. I'm certainly up for any education conferences that are available, just to kind of dig in and kind of get more immersed in that. When I took on the position in Ashburnham, I had never touched anything municipal other than doing government non-for-profit audits. And that's essentially what I did. I became a member of the MMAA and went to all the conferences and the like, and kind of just dove in head first and learned everything and taught myself. But I have been exposed to the school stuff before, so just not as hands-on as I will be in the treasurer position. But I did sit with Kelly yesterday, just to make sure this is something that I wanted to move forward with and get an idea of the flow of how the financial office works and, the day-to-day activities. And I'm very confident that I'll be able to do that, as well as hopefully help Ruth with some of the financial stuff. And some of the questions you guys have been bringing to her too, with my accounting experience that I have.
Great. Any other questions?
The software that we use, is that something that you're familiar with? Or?
I have not used BudgetSense before, but my experience and having been in this industry for 17 years, every accounting software is different, but if you have the understanding and knowledge of the accounting, the software kind of just follows that. I'm very tech savvy and computer knowledgeable, so like I said, I did sit with Kelly yesterday. I helped with putting in some of the deposits. It's a fairly straightforward software. It's very similar to Vadar, which is the software I've used before. So the software I don't think is going to be an issue, something that I am looking forward to. If you guys recommend the position that's taken, is to actually work with Ruth and the other finance staff to kind of figure out how to get some of this information out of the system that you guys are looking to have in a format that is readable. Because you have all kinds of different financial software out there, you know, going from Munis, Vadar, Budget Sense, they're different cost points, so you get what you pay for essentially. It's just a matter of getting what you want out of the system. But as far as functioning and be able to get the stuff into the system, I don't see that being a problem. It's pretty straightforward. It's almost set up like your control panel for your computer. You've got your, you know, journal entries, your deposits, that kind of thing. So it's pretty straightforward software. I think getting the stuff out of it seems to be more of the problem than getting it in. So I'm willing to work on helping with that. I don't know. He has his hand up first.
What accounting software did you use in Ashburn?
So we started with Munis. When I started there a little over 5 years ago now. And our current administrator, who's fairly new in the last year, was trying to save some money and went to Vadar. That software conversion, I will tell you, is quite painstaking. I won't lie. But I also used Vadar extensively in Ashby, which was a town that I filled in part-time for as their town accountant before, which, being a server-based Access database, is somewhat similar to the Budget Sense. It's not exactly the same, but from what I understand, Munis or another software company has actually bought up Budget Sense, so there might be some changes coming down the line with Budget Sense that will be more beneficial for the towns and the school districts that use it.
How do you judge your strength in report writing?
As far as, I mean, you have to have the software and the capabilities to write those reports. I don't use Crystal reports, if that's what you're asking. But as far as being able to figure out what the system's capable of and trying to get that information out, I would say that I'm pretty knowledgeable on that. I've worked with all kinds of different accounting softwares, like I said, from, you know, the Vadar, Munis. I've worked with large software like Oracle. I've done a lot of software testing in some of the other companies I worked with. So some of the concerns that you guys have raised tonight, as far as, you know, you're seeing zero budget numbers versus expenses, I think I can work with Ruth. I mean, I know it's not necessarily the treasurer's position to do that, but it's something that we discussed, and being able to help kind of get some of that stuff streamlined, and also the state reporting and that kind of thing, to be able to get those numbers more transparent, like Sue had requested. Yes.
If you were asked to join us, how long do you think you would want to stay?
I spoke to Ruth about this. So the reason I left Ashburnham was kind of a double-edged sword. But essentially, I left Ashburnham and planned on taking a year off. I'm in the process of getting my master's in accounting. If you look kind of on the second page of my resume, I don't have it in front of me right now, you'll notice that I also have my own tax and bookkeeping business. So at this point, my goal is to get my master's, sit for my CPA, and expand upon that. So I don't foresee having to give up the 1 day a week position at any particular time, because I'll have the flexibility to continue that on. And obviously, depending on the needs of the school district and budgets and stuff, you know, there may be other opportunities for me guys to help you in other areas as well, depending on what happens.
Thank you.
Yes.
I think in the past, we've had conversations about whether 1 day was enough. And I don't know if we're feeling like 1 day is enough with someone with a different skill set, or if we need to talk about that. I know when we were talking a bit about Kelly's struggles in the past,
Yeah.
Ruth, you had mentioned, you know, 1 day enough might not be enough to get all this stuff done, so.
I had the same thought, but I wasn't going to reveal our soft spot.
So I'm gonna
Heavy enough to keep my mouth.
I'm gonna be I'll be confident in this. I think my computer skill set and background is going to put me in a position to get this position in a more efficient running working order, so to speak. And I think that one day a week will be enough. If there are concerns, obviously you guys are getting into your budget season, as you mentioned, that would certainly be something that I would bring to Ruth's attention, but I would certainly bring that with very good support for why the extra hours were needed if I felt like they were needed. Essentially, you know, you've got your daily deposits, you've got your reconciliations, and also working on some financial stuff. But I think once Stacy, who's been helping out, and I sit together and finish getting the reconciliations caught up, I think that one day a week should be sufficient, unless the structure of the financial department, you know, is wished to be reorganized in any way, shape, or form. I think that should be enough, but if it's not, I would certainly, you know, express those concerns to Ruth.
Yeah, I was thinking when we got somebody that had control of that maybe we could give some of that reporting, some of this, you know, other stuff that you're looking for, that trying to do both roles is very difficult. And then we're very, very thin. I mean, we have, you know, part-time accounts payable, and we have, you know, a payroll person and a treasurer, and that's pretty much the accounting office. So, you know, I think, you know, with her background and, you know, that I think we should start here and then, you know, see how the position and the relationship grows. But certainly I think she has a skill set to do a lot more than we're going to be asking her to do.
Okay.
I just want to say, maybe it was a good thing that we kept you waiting for 2 hours. And I appreciate that, thank you.
But that you at least kind of got an
And I
idea.
apologize for intervening earlier and disrupting the whole meeting.
No, you did not.
I felt that like sense of you were really struggling with, why are we looking at a figure that doesn't have a budget? And actually when we switched to Vadar software in my last town, that was one of the things I had to work on, was getting the system to give me the report that was just what the departments wanted to look at. Because essentially, yes, you care that these other funds are balancing out at the end of the day, but a lot of that stuff is quarterly or biannually. So looking at expenses going out and not seeing any revenue coming in is really hard. Because grants and other special funds like that don't work on a budget basis. So I just kind of wanted to, I knew what you were trying to get to.
It was good. It was good.
So, and I think a big part of the struggle too that Kelly was having was, fund accounting is very different than private regular accounting, where you just have expenses and you spend them out and et cetera. So even though this isn't necessarily the accounting side of things, Stacy and I discussed, you know, coming from the accounting side to the treasury side is a little bit easier because I understand the general ledger side. So, for example, yesterday Kelly was taking in money from Bernardston, where they're paying their capital piece of their assessment on a pay-as-you-go rather than an actual percentage of completion, you know, the 5 payments or whatever. So there was a piece of that needed to go to capital and a piece that went to assessment, where in the past it had all been recorded to revenue. So knowing that side of it is going to help me post the revenues to the pieces where it needs to go. So when you guys are looking at these reports, you're looking at true revenue numbers, not stuff that's going to need to be moved, you know, down the road. So I think keeping those things in line and kind of going back actually and looking at stuff that has happened year to date and doing some cleanup, I think will be beneficial as well.
Sounds great.
One quick.
Yeah.
Can you give us a sense of what professional development money would be appropriate?
I don't
know.
Well, that's okay. I don't know what the Massachusetts Municipal Treasurer Association annual dues is or whatever. I'm guessing it's probably $50, the same as the MMAA. Typically, when I'm still actually a member. I have to pay my affiliate dues because I'm a certified. I did pass the CGA in Massachusetts. Their annual conference is like a 2-day thing. I know for the treasurers, they stay overnight, one night. It's probably $400 to $500 for theirs. I've obviously paid it for my treasurers, but off the top of my head, I can't remember what it was. And then there's other trainings through the year, but I think that annual conference that is probably quite a ways away from now. I want to say it's in like April or May, is where they do a lot of the updates and training and I don't quite know how it's structured, because with the MMAA, there was like 4 different paths. So if you were new to it, you would do path 1. If you were somewhat experienced, you'd do path 2. And essentially after path 3, you would take the exam. I kind of just took the exam, but so I'd have to kind of look into what was available, but I wouldn't say more than 1,000 for the whole year. But I would like to sit in on some kind of training just to get more of the, legislation and some of the stuff that's involved with the DESE side of things. And I know that Mark Abrams, who I took some classes through before, he offers school-specific training too, and those are like 1 day, $199 or whatever. And he's a very good educator, so that might be something to look into as well. I just didn't take them before because they didn't necessarily apply directly to me, but I know they're out there.
Okay, thanks.
All right, does anyone have any more questions, or would we like to have a motion?
I move we.
Can we get it right? Get it right.
We got enough paper here.
And it's Tanya, not Tanya, so.
I move we appoint
Everyone says
Tanya Gaylord treasurer. Go ahead, speak for me.
No, I was just wondering how much we're gonna pay.
I'd already talked to her about that, and it's gonna be in the line of what we already had, and she will just then take over from there
As budgeted?
Yes, as budgeted, but we're over budget, so a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Okay.
Okay. Don't you second my motion?
I did, second it.
Good.
What was it?
Yours was sorry. We appoint Tanya and
Oh, sorry,
somehow referenced, within the budget,
In the budget
There you go.
figures.
budgeted.
We're talking about
Yeah.
one day,
Thank you.
1 day a week, 8 hours a day.
8 hours a week.
Right.
Right.
That's the expectation.
Yeah. And then obviously there, if I need to come in and, for a special thing or something, there may be some flex time or whatever in there, but, that's something I think Ruth and I can certainly work
Right.
out. I think right now we're planning to do Wednesdays, cause that actually works for me, but it might work out better once I am in here to do Thursdays. I definitely wanna keep open communication with, Suzanne and Brenda with their workflow, so whatever works best for everybody, so that everyone gets stuff done when it needs to be done and nobody's waiting. I do live in New Hampshire, so I'm up in Spofford. It's about a half an hour away, but it's straight up 63, so it's somewhat convenient if there is an emergency.
As long as it's no snow.
Yeah, snow. Chesterfield Hill, I don't know if anyone knows New Hampshire, but
Yeah,
if
we
it
know.
snows, you don't
I
go
know
over Chesterfield Hill.
Chesterfield.
I have a Jeep and I still don't go over Chesterfield Hill. But I'm very flexible, and obviously, tax season is a busy time, so I will try to make sure that whatever I need to get done is done in that time. But obviously, when there's an emergency, those things are, just work that out and figure out what needs to happen.
So there is a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor of the
Can I ask what the
motion?
motion is again?
Okay, David?
That we appoint Tanya Gaylord treasurer, that the appointment be consistent with our budgeted amount, and it's for 8 hours a week.
Okay.
That sound good?
All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Abstaining? All right. So, yeah, 1, 2, 3.
Motion carries.
Yeah. the motion carries.
Yeah, thanks.
All right.
And I'll get in touch with Stacy for you, because Stacy's
Okay.
gonna come in and help her out as well with the software.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Sounds good, thank you, and I'll
thanks for
touch base
waiting.
with you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
I
Okay.
have stuff in the process, so it's good.
Okay, so our next thing is, there is a listing of subcommittees on here. And my thought was that I would like to take like 5 minutes and subcommittees could get together and decide on a chair. But in view of the time,
Well, and we have
and we
missing.
don't have the people, So how are we gonna proceed to get our work done if we don't have a chair? I mean, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna go about doing it?
Why don't we, at an initial meeting of the subcommittee, elect a chair?
Okay, so that sounds great. So who's gonna
We
set
have a
the,
January CNP meeting already, I think.
all right, do you know the date of that? Of CMP? Okay,
Madam Chair.
yes.
It is not an open meeting violation to talk to committee members about when to meet or what to put on the agenda. So outside of the meeting, as long as we keep it to what's going on the agenda and when are we going to meet, we can have as many phone calls back and forth. It is totally legal. We don't have to do it here tonight.
Can we do it by email?
We can, but everyone be
All right.
careful, just what to put on the agenda, not the merits of it, but just
Okay.
I would like something and when to meet.
Okay.
And you can schedule the meeting as well as the chair of the subcommittee, is my
All right.
understanding.
Then I will set out
We
emails
usually take it up
within the
with
next day or so we can get these things started.
Right,
Because
but I mean, to get
budget
this
has got to
going,
get
it is
started,
policy.
negotiations have got to get started, and policy's got to get
So
started.
if you'd like, my office and I can, we'll make the groups and we'll send it out to you and with a question about what date and time you want to meet.
There you go.
And then you guys can just respond to us, okay? So
That
I'll
sounds
take care
good.
of that.
I mean, we procrastinated for a month, and we
month?
We
I
just
can't
can't.
confirm
More
that
than a
January
month
date for
we've
CNP. I don't have it in my calendar.
It's okay,
No,
I'll
because
still
we
just send
Someone has it.
to the whole
Elections were in
group,
November,
so then you guys
November.
can just reply.
All right.
And if everybody
So it's
replies
just
all, you
been a
get
month.
all of them. Okay.
Just feels like a
But
longer
these,
time.
yeah. We have got to get
Yeah, because
moving.
it feels very fractured.
So I
like we haven't
don't know
got
what
anything
this
done.
last one is,
Okay,
And you haven't.
because there's
so,
none personnel, but the,
number of graduates for the
Yeah,
past
you,
years.
you got all that
We got
information.
that
Yep.
stuff via
Okay,
email.
so
I
you-
I didn't get it in the packet, but I got it online.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
that's how we all got it.
okay.
Okay, so yeah, so
Um,
you have all
We
that.
had our,
MCAS.
we got our newsletters from
Yep.
our principals and administrators.
Yep.
There's no personnel changes. Yes, Sharon, you put your hand
Well,
up.
there are two.
Well, I had a comment on the MCAS, but, I mean, it's redundant if our principal isn't here, so I'll pick it up next week.
Okay,
Right.
perfect.
There is 2 changes in our staff personnel. One was our new treasurer.
But that
Oh,
wasn't,
but that
that
wasn't
just
decided.
happened.
Okay.
That was like really just
We
happened.
also have Karen.
Karen Scanlon.
And and again,
Oh,
that
yes.
just happened with the resignation. And then Tina taking over. But I don't think that it got on, all that happened kind of
board
after
notes
Pam
didn't
left.
On board notes, it got onto your board
Right,
notes.
it did, yeah, I did those,
But
to let you know.
since Pam has left.
It didn't get on here.
Did the board notes get around to everybody else, so
Yeah.
that everybody knows?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
There was a letter from the Northfield
Yes.
Selectmen. No, Northfield Selectmen. I don't know what that one was.
We all got it. It was about
Jean's
Jean's program.
Oh, right.
Supporting her
Supporting her.
initiative.
Supporting her
Yes.
initiative.
Yes. Do you know where they got the information and all that?
For what?
Yeah, did Jean give them the information that was in the paper?
Jean went to each town.
Oh, she went to each town, yeah, she did, and she, instead of having the presentations here, she went on the road because she wanted to meet the school.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, so she wanted to have people, and so she took it upon herself, and it went incredibly well. I mean, people were very, very receptive of her, you know, what her plans were, the philosophy, all of that.
So will she be doing a presentation about that to the CNP subcommittee?
If you ask her to, she would
Yeah,
absolutely
I'd
would.
like her to
That would be
do
nice.
that.
Yeah.
And the only other thing, we have some old business with CNP around the policy or the protocol for use of the exit interview that we talked about for a long time. And it was in our minutes to, you know, get Russell to give us some feedback on that, to
Yeah.
finalize it. So I did reach out to him and just give him a draft, and he did write back to me and give us an edited draft. So I'm wondering if we want to hand it around for people to look at so we can discuss it
It's a good
at
idea.
another time. I'd really like to get it finished up. I feel like it's been sort of almost happening for a long time, and
And also,
But this will go to the CMP meeting.
Yeah, we'll talk about it at CNP and bring it to the full committee.
Do you want to read it? Do anything about it?
No, we should, just want people to have it, and we'll talk about it after people have looked at it and the CMP has met again.
Well, for the people who didn't show up tonight.
let me save them here.
Does anybody?
It's the protocol for
Exit
how the
and-
committee
I don't think it
handles
should
the
come to
exit
the
and
school
shipping
committee
process.
chair.
Okay. Is it time to make a motion?
Do we have any other business that,
I just wanted to know on our superintendent search committee, are we planning to, I don't know what's happening, I mean,
not much is happening. We need to have a meeting, so any of us that are on that committee need to meet again. I wouldn't suggest this next week because it's going to be a little insane, but maybe during vacation or after the first of the year. I have reached out to Dan Haynes, who used to be our accountant, to see if he's at all interested. This isn't our job, but if he's interested in business manager, I think that's something that, it's not the job of the superintendent search committee to do that, but it sort of got tied all in together with sharing services, so it sort of fell in my lap without meaning to have it fall in my lap.
Have you heard from him?
He talked to me and he wants to talk to the 3 school committees that he works under. And he was going to get back to me, so I haven't heard back to him. I talked to him maybe a week ago. And it sounds like Terry Thomas, who is the superintendent, is in favor of it. But whether the other 3 school committee are or not, we don't know at this point.
Elementary schools in her district.
Right. I have spoken to several people on trying to figure out what's the best avenue to try for a superintendent replacement. And most everybody is suggesting an interim position for a year and then to reevaluate. That would give us a year to figure out what we might want to do, whether it's another interim, expanding that interim position for a couple of years, whether it's sharing a superintendent. And so I think we as a group need to get back together again to talk about it a little more.
Let's talk about it then.
I think it's important to keep the committee updated, but it's sort of in flux. I feel like I'm juggling, and I'm not quite sure what the next steps are.
well, I thought Sue's input was helpful to hear from another superintendent. I'm already, too busy.
Yeah.
We really got to take some time to look at this, and
I had received a letter from Terry Thomas, which I guess was initiated by Bob.
Can I ask who Terry Thomas is?
She's the superintendent at Mahar. And this is typical of what I heard when I talked to Turner's initially, is they have all these great ideas, but it's sort of rolling Pioneer underneath their umbrella and not giving us a piece of the pie. For instance, Pioneer Valley Regional School Committee designates 2 members to serve in a joint supervisory committee and join in the contractual agreement to share a superintendent of schools and director of finance. That sounds even because, they're one school and we are. But don't forget, their one school has 3 school committees. So there's got 6 of them and 2 of us. That's not equal to me. Yes.
The way I read that was just a working group to formulate an intermunicipal agreement
It is
for
at
management.
that
And then
point.
after that, and so that would define the contractual, the one-year contractual that would be a group that would work on that.
Right.
We would, as Pioneer, have the ability to say, no, we sent 2 people to this committee and we don't like what you're proposing. We don't have to take it. From the other side, we have 4 entities here, and you're right, we're the second largest. But this is to, see, we don't have to bid this because it's one municipal entity with another engaging in a contract. So,
Jim?
We're having the search committee meeting now.
Yeah.
We need to have the search committee meeting when we have it.
I was just, so it'll be.
I beg to differ. I do buy your statement that the search committee makes sense to look at this, but it seems, my perception is that the search committee is looking for principally a replacement superintendent, whether, okay.
We have a search committee where we're going to make that decision. We haven't there is no written in stone, this is what we're going to do.
I guess my reason for reading that was that we need to think thoroughly on what we do, because I think a lot of them want to gobble us up. And I don't want to be gobbled up. But I think exploring things are fine.
I went to write our own grant then.
We submitted.
So,
I wonder if what's happening is, what I've been thinking about is that we have multiple personnel challenges in front of us right now at the start of budget season, right?
yeah.
So we've heard from Ruth that we need a curriculum coordinator again. We are having to figure out what to do regarding the superintendent. We are talking about hiring a business manager, so now we're splitting the business manager off from the superintendent. And really, we've been told we don't have current job descriptions for almost any of the positions in the district also. So I reached out to Bill Deal at the Collaborative just to say, we are a member and we pay our dues. Do you consult with districts that have this kind of sort of complex personnel cluster of challenges going on right at the start of budget season? And he said, no, we don't do that.
So what are we paying
Add
for?
IT to your,
Right, and an IT coordinator, right? So he said, but if you clarify what your needs are, I do perhaps know people that would be willing to consult with you. We need to know, what are your questions and what are you working on? Do you have any money to pay for this or not,
No.
right? But these are complex personnel questions we're grappling with, and they have huge financial implications. It's not just a search committee for a superintendent, right?
Exactly.
So I'm wondering, what's our next step? Is it really just the search committee for the superintendent that should be meeting, or do we need to figure out how to get some help at looking at this much bigger question?
I think we need to get help. And I think there's
Where's that money going to come from, though, Pat, to pay a consultant?
I'm not sure, but I think we need to come up with what we're looking for and what we want. So maybe if individual members have ideas of what
Why don't you call
what
Glenn?
questions we
Kuchar.
have.
Yeah. Why don't you call his
Yeah.
organization? It's
Right,
free.
exactly.
Have Pat Carrera or somebody that's
Yeah.
in his
Yeah.
organization
Yeah.
that can help you through this process. They've seen everything.
So what I'd like to know, hold on a minute, Bill.
Yeah, okay.
What I'd like to do is to have every member give us some questions of what they would like. Any questions they have, give them to me. I'm going to call Glenn, and we'll see where we go there from there.
Good.
So,
I'm just thinking, in our last curriculum and personnel subcommittee meeting, the question was raised about the actual purview of work for the committee. And we discussed that if people feel like the description of what that committee is supposed to do is not accurate in relation to mass law, that it should be reviewed by the policy committee and rewritten. But our curriculum and personnel subcommittee work description does currently state that we do work with changes to job descriptions in the district. So I'm wondering if that's an efficient group to take this on,
Take the
since
job
the committee
description.
already exists.
Take what on?
The question of handling all these personnel changes and how to get support for the
Writing
district.
job descriptions.
So that's just a question.
If you want to get, I mean, I think it sounds like you want to get some help first.
Yeah.
So I think Glenn's, and then there's also the Department of Education.
Tessie?
They have a regional office, and they're incredible. You might want to start there, because they know everything about regions, and they'll get why you're stuck and what the problems are. And they'll come down right away. If I've talked to them, they'll come down, they said, anytime except this one time, Ruth, when I had asked them. But no, they'll, like, if you want to see them next week or the week after, they'll come down.
Well, I'm willing to make that call. I mean, I reached out to Bill, and
I think
I'm
that would
willing to
be fine.
follow it up.
Yeah, the sooner the better. Maybe they haven't decided on
Yeah.
the
Should've
efficiency and
decided
regionalization grant.
2 months ago.
All right, that
All
sounds
right,
good
so
to me.
if you get
So
people's
it's-
questions collated,
So
just
make
send
sure it's
them
like
to
either
me.
Jay or
Jay or.
Jay Sullivan or
Christine, you
Christine
said?
Lynch.
Yeah.
Christine
Yeah.
Lynch is really the one that
Okay.
knows everything.
She's been around for a little
Right.
while.
And then you might not need to use Glenn's organization, but they're really,
They're good.
really
Yeah,
good
they
to
are.
help their regions.
Yeah,
And they're
real
free.
too. Yeah.
So, homework for everybody in the next 2 days. Can over the weekend, send me a question or two, or a list they have? Because I think the quicker we get started on this, I mean, we should have done it a month
It
and
should
a
have
half
been
ago.
decided already.
Exactly. So,
And I'm just throwing out there, there's always the possibility of asking Ruth about staying on for another year too. I don't know if people have considered that, but it would just be an additional idea with all these other changes that are occurring.
there is a lot of changes occurring, that's for darn sure.
Yeah.
All right, so send your questions, and we will meet again in January. What date do we have?
25th, I think.
25th? All right. And hopefully the subcommittees will meet at least once in the meantime. All right?
Okay.
So I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Oops, sorry. Yes, Jane?
I just have a question that I want to clarify for
Sure.
myself.
Yep.
When you have a subcommittee that is a majority of the school committee, you post that meeting as a school committee meeting as well as a subcommittee meeting?
There is never a subcommittee meeting that there are more, that there is a majority.
What about C&P? There are 7 names listed there.
That is a majority.
One is Pat.
But it's also a majority.
I know, but I would not vote in a case like that.
But it's still 6, which is
Would you
still.
deliberate?
6 is not a
though?
majority.
I don't think voting is.
No, I mean, if everybody shows up, lots of times,
You're there.
you give this list, I go to all the subcommittee meetings, but lots of times, you're missing at least one member
I'm
at
just
any
being
of these
someone
meetings.
who looks down.
Yeah, I know that.
Because I don't want you to get in any
Question for
more
Russ.
trouble than you kind of
Yeah.
avoid.
Second.
I think, Russ, at one point, we asked him that question, and he said that we should always post it as a regular school committee, so
As a
that,
regular school committee, not a subcommittee?
so that we never ran into that, but I'll run it past him again.
No.
I'll run it past him again,
We'll ask him.
yeah. But I think I remember him saying that.
Can you make sure that we all get his response to that question?
Yeah, that's
Thank
why I've
you.
been trying to forward those kinds of things if I ask him a question like that everybody gets it, because I forward it after that. All right, so yes,
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
That was unanimous, I think.